it's good to meet you, man.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
It's good to meet you. Before we get into everything, quick shout out to our mutual friend Dom for putting this together, getting me in contact with you. Dude, I was doing my homework on you a little bit, and you are a bad motherfucker. You're from Russia. You come to the States. You box. Not only do you start boxing, you do your first boxing match or pro fight in TJ, south of the border. That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, and I think mostly it was because during COVID, there was nothing in the U.S., so my manager's like, hey,
Right.
I got you a plane ticket. You're going to Mexico.
Mexico don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
COVID doesn't exist to them.
No COVID.
Seriously, man, that's fucking awesome. And I kind of want to do like a little bit of a life story on you, like why you got into boxing, the coming over to the States, all that kind of stuff. How long have you been in New Mexico though?
About 5 years now.
5 years. So you came right at the beginning of right at the beginning of the pandemic. It sounds like
Maybe about 6 months before. Maybe it was 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to see New Mexico right before just shit hit the fan.
Yep.
And it all fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in New Mexico for about 5.5, almost 6 years now. What do you think?
Dude, I love it out here. It's a little bit like the Wild West. You can kind of do what you want.
Yeah.
I grew up in Colorado when we moved to America, and it's you have to follow the rules a little more. Not that I'm saying I do anything illegal, but
Right.
people just take it easy out here. The mountains are right down the road. Jump in my car, 15 minutes, and I'm climbing rocks.
What part of Colorado were you in?
So when we first moved to America, we moved here for my dad's work. He's a physicist, and he worked at NOAA in Boulder. So we lived in Boulder, and then we moved a little further east towards Denver. So we're kind of there between Boulder and Denver.
Okay. Cool, man. And so you come to New Mexico. Obviously New Mexico, we're known for a lot, mostly bad things. But one of the good things that we do have is we have one of the best fighting gyms on the planet in Albuquerque. And that's where you're currently fighting out of right now, right?
Yes. So, I frequent a few gyms, but I got a lot of friends, Jackson Wink.
Yeah.
And the reason I ended up in moving out here, I was living in California at the time, training out there, out of San Diego, the Arena. That was the name of my gym. And I think it was 2018, and I was thinking, okay, man, I wanted to turn pro, but then one thing and the other, I was dead broke, man. I was living in the back of a gym, I was delivering food and struggling to feed myself. And I was honestly thinking, I'm going to move back to Colorado, ask my parents to let me crash with them for a little while, maybe go back to school, maybe go get a job and see where it takes me. But I got a phone call from a man named Brandon Gibson, who's a good friend of mine. I later ended up working with him in boxing. He was my coach for a while. He said, hey, John Jones is going to fight Alexander Gustafsson for the second time. Do you want to come in and help him out with camp? We'll get you paid. And I was dead broke at the time. And I'm like, well, my heart wasn't really in it at the time. But I'm like, I'll come out here. I'll make some money. And, at least I won't be, maybe I can rent an apartment when I'm in Colorado. And I won't have to live with my parents. So I came out here for a few weeks. Did a camp. And I kind of loved it out here. I love the fight scene. I love the town. And I was like, man, this is really affordable to live here. And John told me, he's like, hey, man, you should move out here. We'll train together and stuff. And I was like, okay.
It's like, hey, man, you should move out here. You should really get out here. It's good stuff out here, man.
So,
Improvised Intelligence is sponsored by the amazing people over at Chop Chili. If you've been a long time listener to the podcast, you know that this is my favorite brand of chili here in New Mexico. Pretty much put it on every meal that I can. They've got red chili, green chili. My personal favorite is this blend of the red and the green. I think this stuff is phenomenal. They also have frozen bags of green chili that you can order directly from their website at chopchilico.com. You can also find them in stores around the state of New Mexico at Sprouts, Albertsons, Farmers Country Market, John Brooks, Keller's Farm Store, Lowe's Market. And you can also find them in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Hobbs, Gallup, Tucumcari. And for all my friends in Texas, they are in El Paso. Again, chopchilico.com. Go get yourself some amazing chili. Now back to the podcast. So how long were you fighting up until that point when you get that call?
So I actually started kind of late. I didn't start fighting until I was 18. I started with MMA because that's what I saw on TV. I was coming from football.
Okay.
And played football for a year in college, and I didn't really like it. It wasn't what I thought it would be. You know, in my mind, I had these grandiose visions of people wanting to, become national champions and whatnot, but that wasn't the reality. And so I only played for a year, and I said, I'm an athlete. I want to keep doing stuff. And I remember I was watching in Colorado channel UPN 20, and once a week there was a show called IFL Battlegrounds, and the cool thing about it was there were different cities, and each city had an MMA team. And they would just meet and they would fight, and I was like, man, this looks so cool. So the summer after my freshman year in college, so I was 19, I finally decided to go to an MMA gym, and I was like, hey man, I want to fight. And they're like, well, we're having fights, and at the end of the month you want in. I was like, yeah. I didn't know anything, so I got my ass kicked, but I loved it, and that was kind of my foray into it. But
what did you think it was going to, like? What did you have? What was the game plan in your head? Like, okay, I'm going to show up to this place at the end of the month. They said they're going to have fights here, and I've seen it on TV. I have an idea of what I have to do. What did you think it was going to be? And then you actually get into the cage.
So it started a little before then. So after my freshman year, I said, I'm not going to do football anymore. So me and two of my friends, my friend Dimitri and my friend Tyler, we bought 2 pairs of MMA gloves, and we would just beat the crap out of each other. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. You're like, yo, man, I saw this on YouTube. And
well, at least you weren't putting each other through tables. Like, see, you guys were practicing MMA. Me and my friends would practice WWE. Practice all the finishing moves on each other in the playground like a bunch of idiots, and then in our backyards when we were teenagers.
I mean, as long as you're having fun, though. So, but we were already punching each other in the face for a few months. So when I showed up to the gym, in my mind, I'm like, look, man, I'm a football player, but I know how to do this. I've been in a few street fights, and it was hard because when I first showed up to an MMA gym, any gym really, any combat sports gym, in your mind, you're like, man, I'm a bad dude. And then people that actually know what they're doing, man, they're gonna pick you apart.
Yeah.
So the first day I was there, I was like, I want to fight. They're like, cool. You're gonna get in and you're gonna spar with this pro MMA guy. His name is George Ashauer. Cool dude, big dude, like 6'4", 230. And I was like, oh yeah, he beat the crap. He was being nice, don't get me wrong, but he still beat the crap out of me. I came back the next day. They're like, all right, you can keep coming, you can keep training. So that was my introduction to it. And they're like, you want to fight at the end of the month? I'm like, yeah. So I didn't know what I was doing, but
well, that's cool, man. So you end up coming to New Mexico. You get into a camp with John. And how long was that camp for?
So I was here for maybe 4 to 6 weeks, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible that you got that opportunity. You've just been in New Mexico since.
Yeah, and that was my plan. After I was leaving California, I was thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go back to Colorado, get a normal big boy job. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe I'm going to move to Vegas and try boxing out there. And then kind of New Mexico was on the table, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this. So, yeah, but this wasn't the first time I've been in New Mexico. After I got my degree in 2012, my degree is in petroleum engineering. I actually, I was supposed to work in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, the very North Slope. And 2 weeks before I get sent there, the director calls me in his office. And I think I'm in trouble. I thought I messed something up. He's like, hey, we lost a BP contract in Alaska. We don't need any more engineers. Do you want to go to Wilster, North Dakota, Midland, Texas, or Roswell, New Mexico? And I'm like, none of those, but I guess I'll go to Roswell. And I'm like, aliens.
Yeah, so, both kinds are down there. Yeah.
There you go. So I was down in Roswell for about 2 years. And
wait, what years were you down in Roswell?
2013 and 14.
That is so okay. So you were okay. I was having this conversation 2 nights ago at an open mic. New Mexico is a tiny place. I mean, you've been here long enough. We knew the same people just because you're a fighter. I'm a comedian. Some of that crosses over for some reason. Maybe they get enough fucking CTE and they're like, I can be funny now. So, yeah. But so in the same years that you were in Roswell for the oil business, me and Dom were down at NIMI in high school. The same
All
exact
right.
years. That's insane.
Yeah, our shop was just down the road, right on college.
No
Right there.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were at the institute. You go because me and him met. We met in 2010, maybe even 2009, but definitely 2010 because our parents, well, our respective mothers, sent us to. So Nimi had this like summer camp that you would go to like the year or so before or whatever, and we went. I remember I think I went like 2 summers before and then the summer before. And he might have gone to both or just the one before and we met there. And we started out together as freshmen in high school. And we went to high school there. That's crazy. What'd you think of Roswell, dude? Shitty little town.
Dude, so I'll tell you the first day I get there, literally what was it? I think I rented a car cuz or something, dude. Oh no, first week. That's what it was. I picked up a little beater car. I didn't have a car. That's what it was. So I bought a little Honda Prelude stick, fun little. I could barely fit in that sucker, but
I was gonna say because you're like what 6'5", 6'6"?
yeah, man, I was like trying to hit the clutch and stuff. But I remember I pulled up to the gas station, and this little shambly looking kid, his car's smoking next to me. He's like, "Hey, bro, can you give me a ride real quick?" And I'm like, "Oh." And he's like, "My car blew up," and I'm like, "Okay, his car did blow up." And he's like, "I'm just right down the road." I had my gun on me, so I'm like, "Yeah, all right, I'll give you a ride." So I give him a ride, and it's an okay little neighborhood, but then there's just like a trap house. He's like, "Hey, bro, do you party?" I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "We got some ice inside.
Yeah,
Come through." And I'm like, "Oh."
knew exactly where this was
And
going.
I was like, "Oh, maybe next time, bro. I want to be cool." I'm like, "Well, good luck." "Oh, thanks, homie." I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. That was my first week there.
You met an extra from Breaking Bad, dude. You met a local celebrity.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny, man. Fucking Roswell's I will say this: Roswell's a shitty little town, but they have one of the best Chinese food places I have ever had. It's a little. I mean, you look at it, you think it's closed, and I just went down to Roswell again in it's the end of October of last year. Yeah, it was the end of October. I went for this was the 10-year like high school reunion, and one person out of my class showed up, so that was fun. But it's a little tiny Chinese place. It's called Beijing Express. And I remember I like the first night that I got there, I was like, before I go to bed, I'm leaving some fucking Beijing Express. I pull up to the drive-through. Of course, the lady didn't recognize me, but it's the same lady that was there. I mean, at that point, it's 2025. I started in so 14 years later. The same lady's working there. It's just her and her husband. Husband does the delivery routes. She makes all the food and the cashier shit. It's like, damn, that's even in this economy, the local Roswell places are still up. So that was cool to see. Anyway, so I want to go back to the beginning. So you grew up in Moscow.
Yes.
And how old are you now?
I'm 35.
You're 35. So I'm not a numbers guy, but were you alive when the Soviet Union was still up?
Yeah, so on my passport says I was born in the Soviet Union.
That is incredible. Because the Soviet Union dismantled in 92, 91?
92, yeah.
92? Okay. So how old were you when when the Berlin Wall fell and
So I'll just say this. I was around to see a lot of the post-Soviet influence, but I never grew up,
okay,
I guess I was never old enough to
experience it.
Yeah, to experience it. And that's, my father was, I would ask him all the time, what it was like and stuff like that. And that's always a trip, man.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, that's one of the most significant part of world history. So to be able to, at least again, grow up around that and then have direct family members that have experienced that, I mean, that's a living history book right there. So how old were you when your family moved to Colorado, said for your father's job?
yeah, so we actually moved to Tempe, Arizona for 6 months, and then he got transferred to Colorado. And a funny story I always tell everybody is when we came to America, first of all, I didn't know we were moving. I always did stuff. I always played sports. Sometimes my mom would be like, "Hey, you're taking piano lessons, you're taking painting lessons now, you're taking English lessons now, and then got me going to an English tutor, and I never really connected why until I was much older, and then they said, hey, we're leaving, we're going to America, and I'm like, oh, where is that? And they're like, that's really far away.
So you were learning English while you were still in Russia.
Yeah, it didn't help. Everyone here spoke so fast, and I'm like, cat, dog, I like toys, and none of that helped. But yeah, we flew here on October 31st on Halloween. I've never heard of Halloween in my life, and this is pre 9/11. The pilots, the stewardesses were all dressed up. Everyone's wearing masks, dressed like zombies. And I remember I asked my mom. I said,
"What fucking circus are you taking me to?"
I'm asking, what's going on, Mom? And she didn't know either. She said, oh, Americans just like to have fun. And I'm like, okay, like I guess I'll take it in stride. So
wait, so how old were you?
I was 8.
You were 8 years old. Okay, so because because Halloween, as I understand it, is a Western holiday.
Yeah, I never even knew things existed.
Okay, that's fucking hilarious. So what memories do you have of your childhood? Like, so you're 8 years old. I mean, I'm not sure what the school system is, obviously, in Moscow, but that's like 3rd or 4th grade-ish.
So back then, we actually started a year later.
Okay.
And I only finished 1st grade when I came here. I got put into 3rd grade. And I'll tell you this. I remember the mathematics in Russia was so advanced. So by the time you're done with 1st grade, you need to already know your whole multiplication table. This is 1st grade, right?
Yeah.
Counting apples, bananas, whatever. You need to know up through 10 by 10.
No
7 times
shit.
5, 35. 9 times 8, 72. You got to know all that stuff. So I remember the math was a lot more advanced. School was very formal. They gave you a little outfit and you're sitting your question. You don't say anything. Boom, they call on you. You stand up to talk. So it was like that. A lot more
Scrutinized. Very, very structured.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah. And, I do remember a lot. But coming to America was kind of a culture shock. And my mom, dressed me up in nice clothing. I'm sitting there. Everyone's, I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I remember the first day, because in Russia, they would feed you breakfast at school. And then you go home and you eat your second meal and your supper and your dinner and whatnot. But in America, they didn't feed you breakfast here. You just showed up and there's lunch.
What was breakfast in Russia?
Oatmeal, buterbrod, which is an open-faced sandwich. And I'll give you a piece of bread with butter and cheese and maybe some meat on it and tea. So stuff like that. But I remember I was like, man, I'm super hungry. I haven't eaten today. And I didn't know the word for lunch. I didn't even know, hey, I need to eat. So I'm like trying to. Right. And everyone's looking at me like, yo, is he? So they're bringing all these teachers to me. Are you okay? And I'm like, are you sick? And I'm like, I don't. So yeah, I didn't.
Maybe you should try stand-up, dude. That's funny as fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that your first plane ride to America, all the stewardesses and the pilots were dressed up in their costumes, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
That's funny as shit.
I remember there was one stewardess, she was dressed as Pippi Longstockings, and the hair and the...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, but that was the one I clearly remember.
That's funny.
She had the little freckles on her, painted on. I was like, what the hell? It's not a good look. I didn't realize it was a costume.
So you get to America, you start going to school, and you just outlined, it's very strict, very structured schools in Russia. You come to America, it's very lackadaisical. You're in Tempe, Arizona. They put you into 3rd grade. You're there for 6 months. Then you go to Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you start, how much time do you spend in Colorado? So that's what, like probably 3rd, 4th grade until...
Through college.
Through college? Okay.
Yeah, so most of my developmental years in Colorado.
How did you enjoy being in Colorado?
I like Colorado at the time, and I think it's changed a lot. Boulder was a very fun, little unique place. It's become a little more polarized now.
Yeah.
But, I do love Colorado. It's very, very green, very clean. and very expensive. So,
Yeah.
but my dad, he did a great job of making sure we were taken care of. We had food. We weren't living in some little shack somewhere on the bad side of town. But so he did a great job making sure we were taken care of. But growing up, I love Colorado. It was, in retrospect, it was a little uh, sheltered, maybe, especially in Boulder.
Yeah.
But
So, and as you're growing up, like you just said, you're going through your formative years, development years in Colorado. Do you guys have any ties, like family or friends that you're still in contact with over in Russia?
absolutely, man. We
Okay.
we used to travel back there all the time, but in Russia, once you turn 18, you get drafted into the army, and usually you're just going to be digging ditches and building houses for officers. So, there's no reason to go back as much. So once I hit 18, I couldn't go back, and at the time,
You couldn't go back.
yeah, otherwise they'll just say, oh, army.
No shit. Because that was gonna be one of my questions: is when do you eventually get your like, did you get American citizenship? Or are you okay?
Yeah, so I have dual citizenship right now. We generally speaking, depending on what kind of visa you have, through my dad's work visa, if you live in America for 5 years and you're not a screw up, you can apply for your green card. That takes back then it took about a year. Once you hold your green card for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. So the whole process, a little over 10 years. With us, it was very hard because my dad came from the Soviet Union. He was a high clearance scientist even back home. So everything was very scrutinized. Then 9/11 happened. So the whole process got slowed down. So it took us not 5, but closer to, man, I think probably like 8 or 9 years to get our green card. And then it wasn't until 2014 that we got our citizenship. So it took us about 16 years instead of the 10 or so. But
Wow. Well, and that's something that, I mean, I certainly didn't know that, and I feel like a lot of people don't know, and I wonder if it's still like that today, where if you're on a work visa, you have to wait 5 years until you can even apply for citizenship. 'Cause I feel like the common, I guess it's a misconception, but I guess the common understanding is right when you come here, you can start applying for your citizenship. Because, I mean, that's why I hear a lot of people saying, I know I've said it myself, like, why is it not a quicker process? I mean, if you have no criminal history in your country of origin and you come over for a legitimate reason and you're here legally, why can't you just start applying? But the actual process when you guys were coming through was you had to wait 5 years.
yeah, and once again, it depends on the type of visa you have. For example, if you're just here on a tourist visa, you can, and you always have to go through a green card.
Right.
Unless I'm something I don't know about, but if you're here, for example, on a tourist visa, you can't apply for a green card. That's not the way it works. But if you're here on a work visa, then yeah, you need to hold it for X amount of years. As long as your place of work keeps prolonging your visa for, sometimes it's a 1 year, 2 year visa, 5 year visa, whatever it may be. So, I have a lot of Russian and foreign friends who are, trying to figure out how to legitimize themselves as efficiently as they can. And, one of the most, I guess, classical tropes is, you get married to somebody who already has an American citizenship.
Right.
And, it's a fun little process, a lot of anecdotes there. Sometimes they'll pull you into the immigration office and be like, all right, what side of the bed do you sleep on? What brand of toothpaste do you use?
Holy shit.
What time does your wife wake up? Does she take cream in her coffee? Does she drink coffee? What does she usually have for breakfast? And they ask you separately. And then, if the answers don't line up, she's like, oh, I don't drink coffee. He's like, yeah, she takes milk and...
Sir, half of these answers depend on if she's mad at me or not.
There you go.
Is she mad at me this morning?
Yeah, today, no coffee, black eye. But yeah, man, so it's a process. And then,
Right.
even if you go the marriage route, I think you can apply for a green card immediately. But then again, you have to hold that green card for
Right.
a while. But the general level of understanding among immigrants is that once you get a green card, unless you majorly screw up, you're good.
Right.
If you're on a visa, you're still on unsteady footing. You can get kicked out for doing whatever, really.
Yeah, well, yeah. Apparently these days it's very loose. So you're growing up in Colorado, and I mean, of course, I have to ask: at what age do you watch Rocky IV?
I actually didn't watch Rocky until I was probably 19.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's funny is that I love Schwarzenegger movies. I love Stallone movies. That's what I grew up on.
Same.
And, I was like, boxing, whatever.
What's your favorite Schwarzenegger movie?
True Lies.
No shit. That's a great answer. It's not my favorite, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
I know it's just realistic enough to, because some of them are just so, off the wall.
See, my favorite's Commando.
Oh, yes. I love Commando.
Yeah, again, unrealistic. Makes zero sense. The back half of the movie, he's running around shirtless and with like enough ammo to like weigh down a tank. But it's great.
I always tell people, funny enough, I always wanted to go into the military because I grew up watching those movies and Rambo. I'm like, I want to jump out of planes and kill bad guys. But, then I went the college route, had football scholarships and whatnot. And so, but it's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, maybe I'll just quit. And, but then, I grew up and I realized all the special forces guys are like 5'6", 160 pounds and they're marathon runners. And I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah, that's a crazy misconception, huh?
Yeah.
It's like you would think they need to be these jacked, roided up, and a lot of them are. Most of them, once they get into like the SEAL teams, the Rangers, Special Forces, certainly Delta, a lot of those guys are on some kind of TRT. Not anything crazy, not blasting, but they are on a lot of stuff because you need to be. You need to be able to recover. You need all that kind of stuff. But yeah, not a lot of them are just 6'5", jacked. What they're like. Yeah, between 5'6" and 5'10", they can move quick. They have stamina out the ass, and that's all it really is. It's just your ability to endure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
did you? Because especially in a post. Because how old were you when 9/11 happened?
I was 11.
You were 11. Okay, so you're well into GWAT happening when you're 18, and that's when you start joining the military. With that in the back of your head, were you ever like? I guess what I'm asking is like how far into that thought process did you let it? Because I feel like it's a very common thought process for young men. Is maybe I could join the military, maybe I could whatever. Were you kind of looking around at the world stage like, man, well, if I do join the military, I'm 100% going to one of these places, and this is what's going on. Did you ever look into it like that?
No, never. It was always idealistic. Like I'm just going to be I'm going to have a rocket launcher and a machine gun and jump in tanks. So it was always something I wanted to do, not because I necessarily felt a sense of patriotism. At the time and this is another thing with me is a lot of Americans are like, oh, you're a Russian guy, and a lot of Russians are like, you're American. So I've never kind of had a easy time figuring out who I am in that sense. So, but yeah, I wanted to do it just to do the cool stuff. And
sure.
And the other thing, I was like, I'm going to play in the NFL, that's cool too. So I kind of went the football route.
Well, that's American as it gets right there, joining the NFL.
There you go. Yeah. So.
Well, and that's an interesting point, and I do want to, dig into a little bit more of your upbringing, but now that you're a grown man, you've been in America for a long time, when you look at because of course being born in not just Russia but the Soviet Union, having spent a not insignificant amount of time there, when you think about not just I guess how you see yourself, but kind of just like where you feel maybe I don't think affinity is the right word, but I guess when you do think about yourself, do you feel yourself more akin to the life that you've lived as an adult through your formative years into your adult years, and you think about where you're from and where you were born and where your nationality comes from? Have you found yourself settling with a hybrid of both? Do you still feel like a kinsmanship and a love for your home country? Like how do you settle that personally?
Yeah, that's a big loaded question. I definitely do feel that in a lot of ways. I'm a Russian man, but I love America. I grew up here. A lot of great things have happened to me in this country, and as much as I want to say, I love Russia, blah, blah. There's no reason for me to move back. I don't really know anyone there. I'm going to start from square one again.
Right.
I guess ideologically, I do align myself more with a Russian way of thinking, Russian mentality. Part of me has always wondered, is it because I'm here that I feel like I need to act like,
Right.
where I came from, or, are these my real feelings? That's such a hard question to answer. And,
Well, because I think about like, so for me, I'm born here in the U.S. My mom's side of the family is as white as you can get. Like they're from the South. Their family came over from like England and Europe, like white as Wonder Bread, right? Like as European side as you can get. And then my dad's side of the family, his parents came to the country. I believe they came illegally. Yeah, they came to the country illegally. I believe my mom or my dad's dad was from Mexico. I always get it mixed up. Either one of them was from Mexico City, and the other one was, I believe, from either Chihuahua or Guadalajara. Just one of them was from one place, and they end up coming up. I forget what my dad's mom did for work, but my dad's dad basically just worked on the railroads until he died. He just worked himself to death, and they had. I want to say they had 7 or 8 kids total, all here in the States. And, I think about that side of the family. And then, funny enough, going to NIMI down in Roswell, there's a lot of Mexican students that go there that are from Mexico. They're from, like, Sonora and Guadalajara and Mexico City. And as you've seen, living in Albuquerque for so long with the huge, not just Hispanic, but Mexican population, even though whether they're either on green cards here illegally or they're, naturalized citizens or born citizens in America, there is still that like huge Mexican pride, and I'm sure a lot of the fighters that you've either worked with or gone up against in the boxing world, even if they're from America, if they're Mexican, they'll rep that Mexican pride all day. So I mean, I completely understand it, or I get where you're coming from, I guess. I just think that's interesting personally. So you're in Colorado, you're growing up, you're in athletics, it sounds like from the jump. And what I find interesting about you too is that you actually go to college, you get a 4-year degree in a pretty lucrative field. How far did you take the football route?
just that one year, and I played all my freshman year. And like I said, it wasn't what I thought it'd be. And I've always been more of a, I guess, idealist in my life. Like I have to feel good about things. They have to make sense to me. And at that point in my life, I'm like, dude, I'm not jazzed on this. I could try to, squeeze out another year and see what happens. And, I didn't start playing football till I was in 8th grade. So it's not like, I invested my whole life into these dreams. It was kind of like,
I mean, that's pretty young.
yeah.
That is pretty young.
Right. I mean, I think by that point I played football for 5 years, and when I was in 8th grade, and that was my first time ever playing football. And they're like, tackle football. I'm like, yeah, tackle. And I knew nothing. So I'm seeing on TV, people are tackling people. And they're like, yeah, it's called tackling. I'm like, cool. So the coach, he says, here's our offense. He puts a, center, guard, tackle, everything, little schematic. Here's the defense, defensive linemen, ends, linebackers, whatever. And each position had, a name, quarterback, halfback, right tackle, left tackle. And I'm thinking like, oh, okay, I want to tackle people. So I'm like, I want to do that. Right tackle. Jesus Christ, what a waste of my time. That was the O-line. Like, the first game goes by and I'm like, Coach, when do I get to tackle people? He said, he says tackle in the name. He says, no, that's on defense. And I'm like, oh my God. So, I'm like,
Just show me who to hit.
yeah. So he's like, you want to play defense? We already played our first game. He's like, kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, all right, you can go on defense. I was a big kid. So, I played D-line, and then I was like, there was a radio station in Colorado, KS 107.5, and every evening they give like a little giveaway, and I don't remember if there's like top 5 at 9 or something, top 5 songs of the day. You call in and you get some concert tickets. And one day they were raffling off Madden 2004. And so I was like, called in, and I won it. Once again, never played a Madden game in my life. I stuck it in, and
Wait, you actually won a radio show contest?
yeah, I was the 10th caller.
Hell yeah.
You remember the 5 songs, so I got Madden 2004, and I'm playing it, and I'm like, dude, the coolest position is to be a running back. Like, yeah. So and I go into high school. In 8th grade, I was 5'10", 180, like pretty big kid. Come high school, I shot up 6 inches, 6'4".
Jesus.
But I lost 5 pounds, 6'4", 175, like a little stick kid. And they're like, oh, you're going to be good this time. I'm like, I want to be a running back. And they're like, looking at this tall, skinny kid, they're like, no.
Yeah, we're not
like,
sure about that one.
Yeah, so, I didn't know what I was doing for the first, 3 years I was playing football. And then finally I kind of realized, oh, okay, so you want to be on the varsity team, blah, 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 blah. And so, they eventually put me at tight end. And then it wasn't until my, junior year that I'm like, oh, I'm going to play in the NFL. That seems fun. You get a lot of money. You get to be on TV. So...
Well, I have to ask, too, if you're going through high school athletics and you're 6'4", how many times were the basketball coaches going to you being like, hey, man, you need to be playing basketball?
Funny enough, I played my freshman year, and I really didn't care about it.
Didn't like it.
In my mind, I was like, man, football's so fun. You get to, do this. And everyone's in the weight room, and I started lifting. I started putting on muscle. And so, sometimes I'd skip practice to go lift. And they're like, where were you? I'd be like, oh, I was, whatever. And we'd all have to run. So, and I wasn't a great basketball player. I was big, but, I was super into football at the time. And then I made up my mind that I wanted to make football my career. And I kind of went from there. But yeah, they always wanted me to, oh, you should come out for wrestling. Hey, you're big. You should come out for lacrosse. You should come out for this, for that, for track. You can throw shot put. And I was like, no, I'm going to play football. So that was where my mind was at in high school, football.
No shit. I mean, it makes sense. So you stay in Colorado, you go to college, and you got your degree in, remind me again?
Petroleum engineering.
Okay. Was that something you organically sought out, or was that something that was suggested to you as like, hey, this is a good degree path? This is an actual degree that could get you a job, and like.
So I was always very good at math. Like I said, my dad was a physicist, and I think on my ACTs at the time, I don't remember, they scored up to like 36 for each section. I got like 35 on math, and bombed the reading and writing. Did good on science,
which I think is hilarious that I noticed your hat about 10 minutes into the conversation.
Yeah, I'm a little.
That's hilarious. That's a great hat, dude.
Yeah, I love it. My sister got it for me because I always correct everybody. I'm like, hey, if you know better, come on, man. So yeah, and actually I wanted to go to a different high school, and my dad's like, you're going to go to this one, it's better academically, and I was all mad at him. And then I had scholarships from a lot of different schools. I didn't get any D1 scholarships, but I had, a few D1 AA, a bunch of D2, and I wanted to go to Western State, which was in Gunnison, and it was like super cool. I took a visit there, and I loved it. It's in the middle of the mountains. Everyone hunts and, rides dirt bikes, and, I'm like, I want to go here. He's like, no, you should go here. You should go here. You should go here. And I kind of let him, I was like, oh, he's like, look, just go here, and because you want to play at a D1 school anyways, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, cool, just go here, and then you'll transfer out to a D1 school. I was like, yeah, okay. And so I was kind of, I guess, steered in that direction. And then, the Colorado School of Mines is an engineering school. That's what they're known for. And I think you had to declare your major halfway through the second year, or maybe after the first, I don't remember. But, I get an email from the counselor, like, hey, we need to declare your major. I'm like, oh, crap. So at the time, I just like say, okay, starting salary, petroleum engineering, like 90,000. I'm like, I guess that, So I wasn't super into it, where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be an engineer and change the world. I was like, I guess if I have to do it, the one where there's money, and it had like 98% job placement rate.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So, because like if you look at physics, like if you got a bachelor's in physics, you're not doing anything with it.
Right. I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about getting a good degree in college. All right, I've got an associate's degree in Crim J, and I dropped out 3 times after. But I'd imagine in a field like getting a physics degree, you have to get all the way up to like your master's or your
PhD,
doctorate, right? Yeah, that's insane. And then especially if you're going to college, and so because are you while you're going through all this, are you accruing student debt?
So after I lost my football scholarship when I quit, and I even told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna go. I already started fighting. I'm like, I'm just gonna go fight. I love it. And he's like, no, well, we'll put you through school. I think I had a few academic scholarships. And
Okay.
whatnot. But and I told him like, oh, I want to just go play sports. He's like, no, just finish school, get your degree, then you can do whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like we did accrue a little bit of debt, and then
So as I was just saying, it's just like if you're accruing debt, you might as well be getting a job that's going to have a high job placement and a good salary afterwards.
yeah. So I worked for about 2 years, and then I decided to quit and actually try boxing full time. And I was 23 at the time, and I was like, man, I've been wanting to do this for the last 6 years. I need to figure out what I'm doing. I either shit or get off the pot. So
Yeah.
so I was in Roswell. I don't remember. We had maybe like 8 engineers or something. One guy got transferred to Mumbai, India. One guy, he got fired because or no, maybe he didn't yet. Eventually he did. He destroyed like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And somebody else was leaving, and so my manager comes up to me. He's like, man, everyone's leaving. Man, this is so blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're not leaving, are you? And for some reason, I don't know why, right then and there, I was like, yes, I'm actually thinking of quitting in a month. I just like right there, spur of the moment. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes. I'm like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Then I have to call my dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going to be quitting my job. He's like, are you going back to school? You got another job lined up? And I'm like, no, I'm going to box. He's like, idiot. So,
Well, and I was going to say too, it sounds like your dad was very, he was very directional in your life, very trying to keep you on the right path. Did he raise you very strict, very like, this is how, this is the right path to go on life, or was he more like kind of guiding you?
He was definitely, and I've got a great relationship with my dad. He was never a strict disciplinarian, but he was he kind of told me, look, he was a realist, right? He told me, look, you can get a degree, you can get a job, you can live a good life. You go to try to do sports, you wash out in 10 years, you're going to have $0 in your bank account. No woman's going to want to marry you. You're going to be, just some guy.
Yeah.
So, and for what it is, he gave our family a better life. And so he's like, look, education, that's number one. Academics, go to school, get a degree, you'll get a good job. And, you progress. And,
Sounds like a smart guy.
Oh, he is. He is very smart. And like I said, he's a realist. So he never.
I mean, if he's going as far enough to say that, hey, when you're 10 years down the line with no money, no money, no bitches, no house,
Yeah,
he's like, you're fucked, dude.
and that was like a real conversation we had. I think
Good for him. How old were you when you had that conversation?
I was in my early mid-20s. I think
Good
I just
for
quit
him.
my job, and we didn't talk too much because they're like, go back to school. I'm like, no, I'm like, I don't need you in my life. I'm gonna become a world champion, and then I'll come and buy you guys a mansion and all these cars, and then you'll realize that you made a mistake. And so that was my line of thinking. So we didn't talk too much, and I'm like, hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. All right, well, talk soon. Eventually we kind of made up, and
Yeah.
everything was a lot better. But yeah, that's what he told me. He's like, you quit your job? Are you going back to school? Well, go get your master's. Go do something that you want to do. I said, I want to fight. He said, there's no money in it. Well, I mean, it's not a good life. And, that's really kind of what it was, growing up in the Soviet Union and Russia. Like, unless you're, well, even then, right? In the 90s, professional sports were a far cry. Right, you have to leave the country. You have to hopefully make it in Europe or America. Boxing, not really. You're an Olympic champion. Congrats. You can go coach now.
That is the crazy thing is a lot of people think that if you make it making it to the Olympics is a feat, and regardless of the lack of financial gain that's attached to it, that is a recognized thing, I think, by most of the population on the planet. That, oh, he was an Olympic fighter. Like, he made it to the tippy top of the rung. Like, that's, holy shit, an Olympic fighter. Like, that's something that people spend their whole lives trying to attain. But people don't get paid to go to the Olympics. You have to get, I think nowadays, the only way you're going to make money going to the Olympics is through sponsorships and through stuff like that. So it's shocking that there's no, with the amount of money the Olympics rakes in every time they hold them, no money for the athletes.
I think if you get a gold medal, they give you like a couple $1,000s. So, yeah. And, it is a very hard life. And I kind of made up my mind that I'm going to try to make the Olympic team. And there are a lot of people, especially in the United States, that have that same mindset. They're like, I have to make the Olympic team. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do in my life. I'm going to make the Olympic team. I'm going to, turn pro, become world champion. I want to, buy my mom a house. So people have real motivation to do that, and when you're surrounded by 20 other people that have that same goal and have real reasons for doing it, it's not as easy as I have real reasons and I just have a Joe Schmo in front of me who's here for fun.
Yeah. Well, it puts things into perspective, man. And I mean, not for nothing, but that is one of the great things about this country is that it allows you to have that dream of like, I'm going to build this myself. I'm going to build myself up. I'm going to be this great fighter. I mean, whatever. Not that I want to loop in fighting with the arts because you're putting your fucking body through misery, but like, is this self-grown and self-sustaining path that you're getting on, right? Whether it is in fighting, whether it is in like entertainment or whatever it is you're doing, that's not the traditional, okay, school, college, job, retirement, die pathway, which is nothing wrong with that. But one of the great things about this country is that you're able to pursue that. You are allowed to have that dream. However, like you just said, there are dozens, hundreds, if not thousands of more people that have the same exact mindset. Like, and I mean, I ran into that for the first time almost 2 years ago now. I went out to Austin, Texas, to do a couple podcasts out there. I just started doing stand-up, and I went to the Comedy Mothership, which is Joe Rogan's club. And I go out there to sign up for their open mic. And it's like, you do the open mic, you do well, you can get called back to audition for the club. And I'm like, yeah, I think. And I thank God I didn't get picked to go up because I was trash at that point. I had no business doing that. No business. I would have died. But I remember signing up, and there were 300 other people in line with me. I'm like, oh, okay. So in this sea of 300 people, there's obviously 299 that are just as delusional as me, A. And B, there definitely was a lot more people that were much funnier and much better at this than me. What the fuck is going on? And then I remember I went May of last year, and me and my buddy, we met with some friends there, and we go sign up for do you know what Kill Tony is?
Yes, I've heard of it. Explain to me.
Yeah, so basically it's a podcast, but it's really it's a stand-up comedy show.
Okay,
and there's a host and his producer, and they have guest comedians come on the panel, and they like roast the comics that do their. So you sign up. It's like me, right, the layman. You go sign up. You put your name in a bucket. So you sign up at. I think we signed up that afternoon at like 5:30 or 6. Show doesn't actually start. It started late that day, but the show doesn't actually start until about 8:30, and then the show runs till 10:30. So from 5:30 to 10:30, you're basically waiting around in a bar next door to the Comedy Mothership. There's, I think that night, 350 people signed up. So you're waiting in a bar for 5 hours with this absolute madhouse of just insane people. And you can kind of look around like, okay, that guy's like an actual comic. All right, that's just an open micer like me, just trying to get started. This person's mentally ill. Like, he's just absolute psychopaths. And it's funny because like the producers of the show, they have a whole producing team, and like a couple of them will come in throughout the show and be like, they'll quiet down the room like, hey, fucking... John Doe, you're on Kill Tony. And the first couple of picks, everyone's like, whoa, fuck yeah, By the 5th or 6th pick, there's just silence. It's like, all right, come the fuck on. Let's get this over with. You're not picking me. Can we get through it? But there's just so many other people that have that same dream as you. So it's like, how bad do you want it? And I think with all of these things, you need to take a real assessment of yourself. And thank God you're talented, because you have to take a real assessment of yourself and be like, am I good at this? Like, should I be doing this or not? You know? I mean, I think your record pro right now is 7-0 with 2 draws, right?
Yep.
I was looking at some of the people you were fighting, and I go onto their page on like the boxing. I forget what boxing site. BoxRec, yeah. So I was looking at their stats. I'm like, this motherfucker has like 2 draws and 13 losses.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Like, I don't know if you should keep doing this, bud.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. For me, I never got into boxing because I'm like, I want to be a millionaire. You know, I want to do enough to make a living. But it was something I was passionate about. Like the idea of being the best in the world, that meant a lot to me. Mine still does. And there are people, and I'm in the exact same boat as you. You know, like the last fight I had, there was a guy in the card. You know, I didn't fight him, but he was like 1-17. And I'm like, oh, you know, maybe if you need a quick buck, but that's not sustainable. You know, I know a lot of people that have their health is much worse off because of boxing. You know, they don't know what they're doing. They're getting their guys with a lot better, and they're getting hit in the head over and over and over and over.
You get punch drunk.
Yeah, man, and it's real. You know, I've met people who are 30 years old and they're talking like this, and I'm talking about boxing, and you're like just trying to piece together what they're trying to say, and you know, you feel bad for the guy because the dude's a warrior, but unfortunately,
no, you respect the hustle and you respect the grind and the brutality they're putting their body through, but that off switch can only get punched so many times, and it's different for everybody. One guy can get knocked out once and he's fucked for life. Another guy can get knocked out 5 or 6 times, pops right back up, and he's ready for the next one.
And I'll say this. You know, the way I feel about the sport now is way different than the way I feel about it when I was 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, even last year. And, you know, yeah, it's true. You know, you can look to see how many world champions are right now who are in their 50s, 60s, can barely speak. And people just don't care about it. Like, what am I going to do? Like, take care of this guy? And they have no more money because they blew it all. Yeah. And now it's like, well, okay, I guess we'll give them a couple $1,000s to show up and do a speaking engagement here, and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, you know, you were a warrior, we very much respect you, but it's like, is that the life you want when you're 40?
Yeah.
You know, do you want to be able to speak with your kids coherently? I don't know.
You want to be able to raise your kids.
And you know, when I was in my 20s, you know, that was my mindset. I'm like, I don't care if I die in there. I don't care. I'm going to make it, you know. And I've never gone into a fight not thinking I was going to win. Never. Even if I'm fighting guys that are way better than me, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to find a way and I'm going to do it. But when people go in there, yeah, you know, they offered me good money. I'm kind of coming off the couch to do this against a guy who's a killer and who wants to hurt you. And, you know, the guy gets brutally knocked out. I'm like, dude, you only have, like you said, you only have so many of those in you. And I had a manager who told me a very similar thing. You know, in the beginning of your career, they're just building you up. You need to be, 10-0, 15-0, whatever. Because if you take too many hard fights early in your career, you're only promised so many wars in your career, right? Eventually, your body's going to break down. You're going to lose your speed. You're going to, your brain's not going to be the same. Your chin's going to be shot. There's some guys, they're great fighters, bam, 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 and then one day they get knocked out, and that's it. After that, they're always just getting knocked out. And some guys are just chinny, and other guys, they get it beat out of them.
Yeah. So. No, I mean, I think you're spot on, and being able to, again, just take a real assessment of where you're at. And like, okay, what can I was listening to a couple of interviews you did. I was listening to them last night about how you were, like you kind of just said, you're getting offers. I was like, hey, you want to go fight in a week? Yeah. And it's like, well, I could. Physically, I could go there. Physically, I can get in the ring and put on a show. But what am I... Sure, you're going to pay me a couple $1,000s, but what am I putting at risk?
Right.
my own personal health. And I always felt bad about, like, I remember towards the end of his life, Muhammad Ali, when he would go out and do public appearances in the last probably decade of his life, and just seeing the state he was in. And he's one of the greatest for a lot of people, the greatest of all time. And even him at the end of his life, he wasn't speaking very well. He didn't move around very well, and they were still bringing him out and showing him to people. I was like, well, I'm sure he, was getting paid handsomely for it, and I'm sure people did love to see him, but, like, there was an air of, like, should we be doing this? Should he be doing this in his state? There's a part of it where it's like, keep the legend alive. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to say this as respectfully as possible, because he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. But, like, his faculties just weren't there. And seeing that can happen to the greatest to ever do it, I just think a lot of people aren't, quite frankly, just aren't as smart as you. They're just not. And they're like, well, yeah, with the devil may care attitude, like, yeah, we'll handle it when it comes. But when it comes, and like you said, do you want to be able to raise your kids? Do you want to be able to speak to your kids properly and articulate yourself? Or do you only just want to be a fighter? This is fine. If you want to be a fighter, cool beans, man. Do your thing. But there's a price you're going to pay for that. When did you decide, so it's after football, when did you decide that you wanted to really start putting effort into fighting? Was it after the oil field?
So, I mean, I think it happened kind of a natural transition from football. Anytime I played sports, it was never like, oh, I'm doing this for fun. I was like, all right, I'm going to be the best in the world at it. And that was always my mindset, and everything I do, really. If I'm going to learn to play the guitar, I'm going to be the best guitar player in the world. Realistically, probably not. But I've learned from people that if you really, really, really set your sights high, and I'm talking like, I want to be the best in the world. Well, crap, I didn't quite get there. But hey, dude, you're still in the top 5%. You were still a national champion. You were still, you're going to come away with a lot of good stuff. But if you're like, hey man, my goal is to have a fight. Okay, cool, right? But if you set your goal up here, yeah, you might not reach it, but you're going to surpass a lot of people along the way.
Yeah.
So that's always been my mindset. And when I was 20 years old, like I said, I had a few MMA fights, but I loved kickboxing. That's what I wanted to do. I absolutely loved it. I had old DVDs of K1.
You would be a terrifying kickboxer.
And I absolutely
I don't want those legs anywhere near me, dude. Holy fuck.
And unfortunately, when I was 20 or 21 years old, I tore my hamstring. Couldn't even touch my knees.
What happened?
It was I worked and got done working out, and I was just stretching, sitting in the splits. I'd done it a million times. I was pop, pop. I'm like, ooh, that was weird. Whatever, feels funny. Showered, went home, went to sleep. Next day, I couldn't get out of bed. And so for like weeks, maybe a month, dude, I was basically like rolling, like dragging myself to the bathroom and just, eating bottles of Advil and whatever pain pills I could get my hands on so I could go to class. Because, I didn't want to tell my mom or my dad, and I don't know. And because at the time we had insurance, we had a pretty high deductible and we haven't met it yet. So I didn't want to be like, hey, I need to go to the doctor, and then they had to pay a bunch of money, or I had to pay a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So I never got it checked, and so
keep going. I'm just gonna check the cameras. Keep
gotcha. Going. And so I never really got it checked out, and it was messed up, and it was my senior year. It was the winter, so about 6 months before I graduated, and at that point, I was like, well, I guess I'm done. I'm done with sports. I can't even touch my knees. I can't really lift. I can't do anything. Like, my back hurts. My leg is zero mobility. I can't throw a kick. I can't wrestle with MMA, And so I was like, well, whatever. I'm going to go work. Terrible pain every day. But when I started working the oil field, I actually tore it again.
Same hamstring?
Same hamstring.
Jesus.
I was just reaching down and pick up a tool. And, it got better. It wasn't good, but I could do stuff. Everything hurt, but I could do stuff. And I went, boom. I'm like, damn it, come on, not now.
How much time passed between both tears?
I want to say 1 to 2 years.
Jeez.
So after I tore it the first time, I was still 20. I was like, you know what, I'm going to take another fight and I'm going to do it. And, like I couldn't train, but I was too much of an idiot to back out.
Talk a little closer to the mic.
Oh, yeah. So,
no,
I was too much of an idiot to back out of the fight, took the fight, lost. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. And tear it a second time. This time I'm working. I have insurance. I go to the doctors and they're like, well, the good news is you actually might be able to avoid surgery now if you do a lot of work. And so, dude, I went to physical therapy 5 days a week for like months. It was the most painful thing I've ever done, dude. Like no BS, like crying, trying to stretch, like, like sweating.
Yeah.
And, most of the people in the physical therapy were like old people, and they're like, oh, and they're seeing this big dude like, oh.
Well, yeah. What kind of movements and stretches and like rehabilitative things were they having you do?
Dude, just literally like stretching, like force stretching, where they would sit you down and they would slowly start putting you in a position, put weight on you, and your body's tensing up, and I'm like, I'm not BSing, dude. My shirt would be
Drenched.
wet, yeah, drenched, dude.
Yeah.
And day after day, sometimes I'd be like, no, you need a day off, and I would just go home and like. So I missed about 2 months of work, and they were pissed because you only have so many engineers, and
Right.
I'm like, sorry guys, but then I came back, it got good. And I remember I was like, man, I want to, work out again. Not even fight, just work out. And there was a gym in Roswell. I'm sure you know Alton's Power Block. Yeah, I went to Alton's. I did like a little bit of lifting. I'm like, holy crap, like
That's a great gym,
it's
dude.
not hurting. And then in the corner, they had a speed bag and a boxing bag.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some Mexican kid. He just punching it. And like, he kind of knew looked like he knew what he was doing.
What year was this?
2013.
Do you remember the Mexican kid at all?
I do not.
Was he jacked?
No, he was a skinny, like, not jacked.
Okay, that was because what a good friend of me and Dom's, Poncho, he used to go there a ton, and he was like, I don't think he doesn't box anymore, but he used to do boxing and bodybuilding. Like went to Golden Gloves, did the whole thing, like legit bodybuilder. Like
hell yeah.
Trained me for the one and only show that I've ever done and will ever do. Because fuck that, fuck that. I love training. I mean, I haven't gone to the gym in a few months, been a lazy piece of shit, but I love training. I love being in prep for bodybuilding. My God, that show was gay. Oh my God, I hated that shit. Anyway, yeah, Alton's a good gym.
Yeah, so
Power Block's a great place.
So I asked the dude, I'm like, is there a boxing gym in town? He's like, yeah, it's called The Dungeon. And he gives me an address. I roll there, dude. It looks like an abandoned building.
For sure.
But I hear noises coming out of there. So I walk in and, sure enough, they have bags and stuff. And there's a coach there. His name is Lupe Perez, super old dude. He's probably past 70 now. And, I love him, man. He did so much for me. Great guy. And he helped a lot of the kids out. And funny enough, the building has been condemned over and over, and they just tear the paper down. And that kid had holes in the wall, holes in the roof. During the winters, it would get so cold. Like, you had to work out with a jacket on and full pants, a hat. We had one wood-burning oven, so people would throw wood in there, warm up, go box around, go back, warm up. And during the summer, it got so hot, dude. I just remember people to be working out in their underwear.
Yep.
And, that place was a hellhole, but, things like that kind of bring you up. So, I went there, hit the bag a little bit. And so Lupe told me, hey, are you going to fight again? And I'm like, maybe. So, let me get back to you. And like, I never really thought about going back and seriously about going back and fighting. But, I already wanted to like in my mind, like, oh, it'd be so cool to be in the Olympics. But my leg is effed and this, that, and the other. And because in 2012, I was in Oklahoma for training for work. And I remember I was watching the Olympics on TV and something inside me was like, oh, I would love to do that. Like, I see all these boxers representing their country and, it got me fired up. But I was like, I can't really even jog. So It's not going to happen, but in my mind. And so once my leg got better, I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to test it out. If I don't remember, where was it? I think if you drive east out of town, they called it the 5 Mile Hills because it's just going up and down. Up. I think it's the same road that takes you to Bottomless Lakes. Mm-hmm. And so like you run up half a mile and it goes down half a mile, up, down, up, and that's 2.5 miles. Then you run back. So I drove out there. It's stupid in retrospect, and I was like, you know what? If I can do these 5 miles, I'll fight again. I'll fight again. So I get out there, park my car in the middle of the desert. Didn't even bring a water with me because I'm an idiot. So I just start running, dude, and like I haven't ran in years.
What time of year is this?
Summer, hot. Yeah.
Because for people that never been down to Roswell, it gets nasty in the summer. Like obviously, just like with the rest of New Mexico, the winters are iffy these days. But back then, and this is what 2013, 2014 or something?
2013.
2013. Yeah. Summers were getting up to about 104, 105. It was getting bad out there.
Yeah.
Hot.
Dude, so I'm running and I'm like, I need water. And I'm only like, 2 miles in. I'm like,
You're guaranteed 5 miles back.
yeah. So I'm like, screw it. I finished the run, dude. And like, got in my car. I'm looking for a water bottle. There was some old piece of crap plastic water bottle from a year ago in my trunk. I'm like, sucking it down. And I'm like, drive back to my house. And, with injuries, sometimes things happen and you don't know how bad they are. It's not till the next day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh man, I don't know. That was a hard run. I haven't ran in 2 years. I'm like, all right. I went to sleep. And the next morning I remember, I'm like, all right, moment of truth. And I got up and I was like, cool, I'm fighting again. Nice. So that's when it kind of took off for me.
Good shit.
Yeah.
So you end up leaving the job, you leave Roswell. Where do you go after Roswell?
So after I quit my job, I actually stayed there for another about 6 months. I did spend a lot of time traveling to Albuquerque. That's how I first got in with Jackson Wink.
Okay.
If you go on my Instagram and scroll all the way down, I mean like 2000, I don't know, it would be 13, 14. There's pictures of me with John Jones way back in the day. And yeah, dude, that's when because I remember I started my Instagram when I first moved out to Roswell. So yeah, I'd be traveling a little bit, and I would come to Albuquerque to spar. And then after that, I was like, man, there's not a lot of boxing in Roswell. So I said, you know what, I'm going to move back to Colorado because I got pretty good boxing out there. So I trained out there for about 2-3 years. And then I moved to California. I was out there for about
What drove you out to California?
Better boxing.
Just boxing?
Yeah.
What part of California?
San Diego.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was cool, man. I loved it out there. Just super expensive. And
I was going to say, what were you doing for work out there?
So at that time, I was already a personal trainer. But
okay.
Everybody in California is a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Dude, so I'm like, my research was, I was like, all right, personal training is a bunch of dots within like a 2-mile radius. I'm like, damn it. So, I couldn't make that happen. So I started delivering on apps, doing DoorDash and Postmates. And at the time,
We have to say, what year is this?
16, 17, probably 2017.
Okay.
17, 18, somewhere between that range. And I was, no, probably 17, 18, yeah. And because I had a Mitsubishi Eclipse 2-door, so I couldn't do any of those
like
Lyft or Uber, yeah. And so I had to deliver food, and it was horrible, dude. Gas was like $7 or $8 a gallon, and everybody was doing Uber Eats or whatever. So you're sitting there for 20 minutes in the parking lot waiting for a little $5 delivery. Yes, I'll take it, wherever. I don't care. And then you spend so much in gas. So 3 hours you'd make $25, but you spent $10 in gas.
I was gonna say, how much was the damn gas?
Yeah, so I was living on oatmeal, ramen, and bananas. And once a week I'll go out to like Denny's or something. I'm like, yes, this is I earned it. But.
So you're out in California. You end up getting the call. Is that where you get the call to come back to Albuquerque?
Yeah. So what happened in California? I was out there with a really good coach. His name is Bashir Abdullah. He was the head coach for the U.S. Olympic team, I think, in 2008, I believe. And so we were working together. Everything was great. They had some really good heavyweights out there. But I was really unhappy. I'm like, looking back on it, probably pretty depressed. No money. Yeah. Like I was living in basically the back of a gym. They rented these old offices and there were a bunch of fighters just living there.
Is that I was going to ask that a little earlier, but is that a common thing for gyms to do? And the only reason I ask is because So I've been at the company that I've at the same company for about 3 years now, and for 2.5 of it, I was a recruiter, so I was hiring a lot of people, whatever. And I had a couple of kids. One for sure. I forget his name. Super nice kid. I don't even know if he worked with the company anymore. This is maybe like a year and a half or 2 years ago. And he applied with us. He came in for an interview, and he had told me that he was a fighter out of Jackson's. And he was talking about how he was living at the gym. I was like, no shit, well, good for you. I mean, yeah, if you can work this job, is where you need to be, the time, the place, whatever, supplemental income, so you can continue in your camp and all that. So is that a common thing for boxing gyms or just fighting gyms in general to allow fighters that they feel are committed and that they want to train up to live at the gym?
The gyms that can afford it, yeah. Jackson Wink, they have a great, very big dorm. A lot of people live there.
No shit.
I think American Top Team used to do the same thing in Florida. My gym in San Diego, they did that. And the other reason was we had so many fighters from TJ from Tijuana who would, they would come up for a week and then they go back. So they needed a place to stay.
Right.
And, I remember my very first gym. I didn't really think nothing of it, but I remember hearing a conversation between the owner and I don't want to say wannabe fighter because he was a fighter, but not a very good fighter. He was like, "Hey man, can I just let me live here? I'll teach classes. I'll wash the windows. I'll sweep the floors, whatever." And then they were like talking about it. And so, I mean, that's a real thing. Fighters be like, "Hey man, can I stay here?
Yeah.
Can I stay here? I just want to be in the gym all day." So that's common. Bigger dorms kind of depends on the gym. Some gyms are like, no, you can't live here. But a lot of gyms, especially where ex-fighters are owning, they kind of know the struggle.
Yeah.
So some of them are more open to it, for sure.
No shit.
Yeah.
All right. So you're living in the back of the gym in California.
Unhappy,
Yeah.
kind of depressed. And it was the hardest I've ever trained. I used to train like 4 or 5 times a day. Our first run would be at 5:30 in the morning. So I'm up at 4:30, come back. Then I would lift. I'd get a quick snack. Then I'd go box. And I'd come back. Then I'd do a run. Then I'd come back. Then I'd train with my coach in the evening, 4 or 5 times a day, day in, day out. And like some of the worst performances I've had. Because like mentally, I was just not there, dude.
Well, and I was going to ask too, you're training a ton, but what type of shape are you in? Like, what's your recovery looking like? What's your actual, like, your food looking like? Like, how are you actually performing physically when you're training that much?
Horrible. At the time I didn't know, because like I said, when you're younger, you're like, I'm just going to outwork everybody. You watch David Goggins or whatever. I'm going to die. The only way you're beating me is if I die in the treadmill. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to die in the gym. And no recovery. My body's weak. Like I said, I'm eating ramen, oatmeal, bananas, whatever's the cheapest thing I can find, Sometimes, there was a little Mexican mart where they sold chicken real cheap, so we'd have chicken. That was our
delicacy.
Yeah, that was it, right? Eating not very well, recovering non-existent. But like I didn't realize that at the time, but mentally, dude, I was just like, oh my God, horrible place, horrible place. And so, at the time, I made it to the U.S. team trials. I think that was my second or third time making it. And they basically take the top 8 in each weight class in the country, and they basically duke it out for the number 1 spot. At the time, I was ranked number 3 in the country, and like I did not want to be there. And that's a really crazy feeling when you're about to step in front of somebody and they're going to try to hurt you, and you're like, I really don't want to be here. And I just gave a very lackluster performance, and I looked like crap. I was number 3 in the country. I think the number 1 guy, he automatically had a bye to the U.S. team, and then you had to beat him for it. So I was actually seeded number 2 at this tournament. I fought the number 7 guy, lost. So single at the time. Some tournaments are single elimination, some are double. I was single. So you show up, you fight, you lose. And my coach's like, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
I don't know. So and I told him like, "Hey, can we turn pro?" And he's like, "Dude, not after that performance." He's like, "I don't know." He had that talk with me. He's like, "I don't know if this isn't the place for you, maybe, because I see how hard you train, but that looked bad, real bad."
Shit.
And I was like, "I know." And he invested a lot in me. Coach Bashir did, and I really like him, but I think that's what it was mentally. I was just not there. So that's the time I was telling you, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Colorado, get a job. I was 27, 28, 28 at the time. And yeah.
How are you? I mean, that's a significant loss. The night of, day after, how are you processing that?
Horrible.
Man, give me a second. We're gonna take a quick break. Hello. Oh, pest control. Oh yeah, you're good. Yeah, go ahead. We're recording. You're good.
Okay.
Just can you lock the handle behind you?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Who's it?
Pest control.
Oh.
I thought they weren't coming till the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyway.
Here, let me send a quick text real quick.
Oh yeah, you're good.
I'm going to.
Yeah, no problem. You're good.
So I told my next client, I'm like, yeah, I'll let you know. I'll for sure let you know. I'm like, okay.
Okie dokie, and we're back. Yeah, I thought pest control was coming later. Whoopsie. All right, so after that, the night of and then the day after, how are you processing that?
Man, it's horrible. Your whole world basically falls
Yeah.
apart, because like I said, most fighters, myself, I never go into a fight thinking that there's a possibility of losing. You're like, I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. So, and then you don't, and you're like, oh, right. It just completely derails everything. So, now I have to talk to, that's the worst part for me is when some people are like, what happened? And you have to tell them, I don't know. I lost.
Because was that the first significant real stop, potential stop in the fight career where it's like, oh shit, I was right there, I didn't make it, and now the guy who's been training me for X amount of months is now telling me the same for me?
That was you always have these thoughts in the back of your mind. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to go do something else. But that was the first time that I was like, oh, this is bad. Okay, not good, because in my mind I was like, yeah, I'm going to make California my home. I had great sparring, great coaching, and I'm going to turn pro out here. And all of a sudden he said, yeah, I don't think you're ready to turn pro. And now I'm like,
And as far as the age in boxing goes, so you're 27, 28. I mean, again, fighting's a young man's sport. When you're really in your prime, you can really hold your faculties together. Are you considered right in the middle as far as age goes? When do they start considering you to be an older, quote unquote, older fighter?
depends on the weight class. As a heavyweight, you can, not always, but you can box up until you're 40 and still put on very good fights. Lighter guys, 120, 130 pounds, by the time you're in your early 30s, you're done. Because the first thing you lose with age is your speed.
Right.
And, when speed is your game and you're a step behind, then that's very problematic. And the same thing for a lot of the smaller guys. It's a big weight cut they do. They're walking around 150, fighting at 120, right? That's 20% of their body weight they got to drop. And
is there that I know it's in the UFC, everyone talks about it, but with boxing, are you able to so let's say you cut down to your weight, right? Is there that quote unquote recovery period where you can eat and drink water
24 hours.
So you do have the 24-hour window.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in boxing, I've seen it's less beneficial to be cutting a lot of weight because the longer fights, 10, 12 rounds,
Yeah.
you need that, you need that strength.
Well, and especially I would imagine too, just cognitively speaking, if I remember this correctly, the first organ in the brain to lose water is the first organ in the body to lose water is your brain, And the last organ to recover water properly in the body is the brain. So when you're doing that crazy cut and you're losing so much water, your brain starts to take the hit.
And that's why we see a lot of deaths and real damage in boxing, right? Just exactly for that same reason. You know, your guy had cut a lot of weight, cut too much weight, didn't have a good weight cut. And, you know, now your brain and the skull doesn't have all that fluid. Now it's bouncing around that skull and there's less protection for it. And, yeah, you know, once again, that's one of those questions you have to ask yourself, you know, is it worth it? You know, do you go in there and fight against, you know, and if you're fighting some guy you're confident you'll beat, yeah, sure, whatever. But, you know, if you're going out there against a certified killer, like, can your brain take it? I hope so.
Yeah.
And, you know, 90% of the time, yeah, no problem. No problem. But sometimes, you know, things go awry.
If you're operating in that 10% of, you know.
Something went wrong.
Jesus, that's fucking terrifying. So you're about, at this point, you're still at a good age to fight. This is 2018-ish?
It was 2018-ish. I moved out to New Mexico. I'm thinking, do I want to turn pro? And, you know, at that point I haven't fought in...
Get closer to it.
At that point I haven't fought in, you know, half a year. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'll take a few more amateur fights. And so if the Olympics is in 2020, the Olympic trials year is 2019. Olympics in 2016, Olympic trials are the year before. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a few of these national tournaments. And that's how you qualify for them, right? You need to win national tournaments. And then if you get seeded, if you have a good enough result, you get to go to the Olympic trials. And if you win the Olympic trials, you're on the Olympic team. If you're on the Olympic team, you're still not guaranteed to go to the Olympics. In 2020, I believe, my weight class, super heavyweight, had 18 people in the world go. So it's not like, oh, cool, you made the Olympic team for Zimbabwe, you're going to the Olympics. No, there's only 4 spots in Africa, 3 spots in Africa. You'd better be 1, 2, or 3 in all of Africa, or you're not going.
Holy shit. And what qualifies you super heavyweight?
201 pounds plus.
Okay.
So, and so that's kind of, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it one more run. I didn't have a coach out here. I'm training myself. You know, I went to a few gyms out here, never really clicked with anybody. And so I'd be going out to these tournaments by myself.
What year is this again? Sorry.
2019.
2019,
okay. Right. There's, generally speaking, what they do for the Olympic trials, they take the number 1 and 2 guys from last year, and there's 3 big tournaments. And you have to place first or second in your weight class, and you get to go. And one of the tournaments was, I think it was in Oxnard, and I linked up with a dude named Demetrius Reed, a friend of mine, and I didn't really know him that well back then. You know, we were at a few tournaments together, and I asked him, hey, are you going to this tournament? He's like, dude, I'm thinking about it. And we were like, hey, dude, let's split a hotel room because it's too expensive to go. And I told him, I'm just going to drive down there. It'll be cheaper than flying, and, you know, I'll save on Ubers. And he's like, okay, cool. So the dude I didn't really know, we just kind of rented a hotel room together, you know, found some people to tape our wrists or tape our hands and, you know, work our corner. And that was one of them. Another one I think was in Columbus, Ohio. I'll call my old coach from Colorado, say, hey, can I go with you guys? And okay. So I kind of weaseled my way in there.
Yeah.
And
hey, you got to do what you got to do.
There you go. Yeah. So, you know, I was training myself going to these tournaments and, you know, coming last year from being ranked number 3 and then, so, you know, there was a lot of expectation on me, but that Olympic trial year I fell short. So twice I was at the fight that if I would have won, I would have gotten to go to the trials. But I didn't. And at that point I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn pro. I need to start traveling again. So I started traveling to Vegas to do my camps. I got one of my good friends, Sam. I called him. I said, hey, man, what do you think about coaching me? He said, yeah, let's do it. So him and I were working together a lot. I was scheduled to make my pro debut in March of 2020 here in New Mexico. Yeah, you know where this is going. So I'm training. Everything's great. And then I see this like article like no gatherings or more than 20 people or something like that.
Basically get one of these.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I call the promoter. I'm like, hey, I saw this note from the governor saying we can't.
Some bitch is saying that
Yeah.
we can't hang out.
Yeah, and he's like, no, that's BS. calls me back a few minutes later. He's like, okay, yeah, I guess it is a thing, but we're pushing it back 2 weeks,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, no worries, right? It'll blow over in 2 weeks. And, this is March, so it's late March now. Hey, so we're still good to go. We got to push it to June. This thing's really, sorry about that. Okay. Take a week off, get back to training. March, April, May. Hey, so we on? Give me a second, I'll call you back. Hey, we got to cancel the show. I don't know what the hell's going on. So, there were no fights in the U.S. that time. So, and I was working with a manager at the time, and he said, we're going to go to Mexico. I said, okay, wherever. I want to fight. So I went out for Mexico for my first 2 fights during COVID. And
so what I'm curious about that real quick is, were you guys, when you went to Mexico, were you driving or flying?
We flew into San Diego and crossed on foot.
Okay. That makes sense. Because I was going to say, how the hell was there even travel through country borders at that point?
Yeah, so.
That's incredible. I mean, it's good you're able to do that at all.
Yeah, and in Mexico, they would, I think it's a lot more archaic over there. But, here, it varies by state. Like California, they're pretty strict. You got to do a blood draw, Hep B, Hep C, HIV. For boxing, for pro fighting. You got to do an eye exam, make sure you're not right. You can see, and in some states you got to do a brain scan. Some states you got to do an EKG, and usually that comes out of the fighter's pocket, right?
Yeah, so now you're gonna say
it's like $1,000 right there.
Paying for all that.
Sometimes it's the promoter if he wants you to come in and be on his card to lose, most likely, or if you're his guy, then he might cover it. And, I'll get into that in a second. But in Mexico, they do a little needle. Okay, you don't have AIDS. Okay, I don't remember how they did the COVID test.
Yeah.
Okay, you're clean. I fly into San Diego. They call me that night. Hey, your guy just tested positive for COVID.
Oh, my God.
What are we doing? We're out here. We're gonna find someone for you. Okay, and they tell you who you're fighting. Hey, you're gonna be fighting Dominic. So you look up who that is, you find videos of him, and you say, okay, I've got to structure my camp around this guy.
Right.
They call me back. Hey, we have a guy, they give me his name. And you know how Mexicans have like 5 last names. They'll be like Juan Sanchez Barreras Ignacio. And you're like, okay. And on BoxRec, the website, they might just go by Juan Ignacio. But you're typing all these in, so nothing comes up. So I'm trying to find this guy. And they're like, it'll be his debut. He's had about 50 amateur fights. And I'm like, okay. So I'm calling my people in San Diego. Hey, you ever heard of this guy? They're like, nah, I've never heard of him. No. Where's he from? I don't know. So, my gosh, whatever. We'll take the fight, dude. It's been a year. We're waiting. So I take that fight, and, we knocked the guy out, and it was cool. But, I had no idea who I was fighting.
How many rounds?
I think I knocked him out in the second. So, but it was good. It was fun. It was all in good fun.
Well, at least it wasn't for nothing. That's good.
Yeah.
So, was that your pro debut?
That was my pro debut. And at the time,
TJ, right? Yeah.
At the time, no New Mexico fighters were fighting because there were no fights to be had in America.
Right.
So I was the only one really fighting. I was going to Mexico, getting fights, and everyone was wearing masks. I think our ref had a mask on, or no audience. You have the judges and their social distancing and whatnot.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah.
So you made an interesting comment about you're alluding to some funny games happening in boxing promotion, and you hear about that a lot. I mean, that's been a thing since fucking Don King and way before him.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can only speak to your experience, but I know, because I was listening to some of your interviews last night, I know you've ran into stuff with having to get sponsors and having to get with promoters and having to do all that, and we can certainly get to that. But in the experiences that you've had boxing, especially up until this point, what type of, because I feel like when you're going through this career, you can almost see if I make this decision and go down that avenue, I might get a little bit of money, but that just seems a little shady, or this is clearly it's what kind of stuff like that have you ran into?
Yeah, and I guess I'll divulge a little bit. And the boxing model, especially since Floyd Mayweather, you got to keep that zero. You can't take a loss, right? So what would happen? Let's say you're a young fighter, you've got some amateur experience, and you're pretty good. You're a good-looking dude. You're marketable. You know how to speak well. If I'm your manager, I say, okay, I need to get you 10 wins, 15 wins, then we'll get you bigger fights. And at that time, you're racking up experience, getting better. The first few fights might be pretty easy. I got a guy who's making a debut. Now you're 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 4 knockouts. And I say, hey, John, do you want to fight Noah? He's like, oh, he's pretty good. I want $3,000 for it. Okay, so I call the promoter, hey, I got an opponent for him, but he wants $3,000. A small local promoter is not going to have that kind of money to throw around on some guy. So he says, sorry. Okay, me as the manager, I fork out that cash. You get another fight, another win. In the hope that when you get big, when you start making $100,000 a fight, I get to collect my percentage.
Right.
Or I sell your contract to the biggest bidder, so to speak, and I'll sell his contract for $200,000. Boom.
Right.
Recoup my losses, or however that goes. If you're fighting for a local promoter, you better be selling tickets.
Right.
Right, because otherwise they're going to say, well, we gave you $1,000, we gave your opponent $2,000, you sold $500 worth of tickets, we lost money on you. We don't need you anymore. Right, but if you're selling tables and seats and everything, they're going to say, okay, cool, he sold $5,000 worth of whatever. We paid him $1,000, we paid his opponent $1,000, we're still out on top. Very good. When you start getting to the bigger stage, let's say you're 10-0, people are going to want a lot of money to fight you. You need to take fights that look good on paper, because if I look at your record and you beat a guy who's making his debut 0-5, 0-10, 1-5, 2-20, they're going to say, oh, he hasn't really fought anybody. But okay, now I'll get you a guy who's 10-5, but maybe he's 40 years old, hasn't fought in 3 years. Right? So depending on how much research they're going to do, they say, oh, he beat a guy that's 10-5. They click a little further. Oh, that guy's already 40 years old and he hasn't fought in a while.
Right.
Or maybe he fought a guy that came up 3 weight classes to fight him. But the guy was, 20 and 15, good experience, whatever. Right? And then if you're my guy, I'm going to tell you, hey, it's January 7th. You're going to fight on February 28th, 6 weeks from now. Start getting ready. I call your coach. You guys start getting ready. You know that this fight is going to happen on this date. You're training hard. A few weeks later, I'm going to start looking for opponents for you. And there's guys that make careers out of taking short notice fights because they know the money's going to be better. 2 weeks out, a week out, I might call and say, hey, I need an opponent for Noah. He's 10-0. His opponent dropped out. You never had an opponent, but I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm going to get 10 guys that say yes. And then I go sit down with your coach. What do you think about this guy? This guy's also 20-0. And you're like, oh, that guy's really good. We don't want him. What about this guy who's 0-10? No, that guy sucks. He's going to look bad on a record. What about this guy who's 15-3, but he's only fought complete bums? He's going up 2 weight classes to fight you. And, I called his people in wherever he's coming from. He hasn't been in the gym. Ooh, okay, that'll be good on our record sheet, so to speak. So we get you that guy, right? And we bring him to your state. You're from New Mexico. We fly him in from Idaho. I don't know, right? You're going to have all the fan support. The judges are going to know you. The refs are going to know you, right? So they're going to want our guy, our New Mexico guy, to do well. So there's a term that's been coined kind of called A-side, B-side. If you're the A-side fighter, you're expected to win. You're going to get certain advantages. And a lot of it is they're kind of just stacking things in your favor to make sure you're winning. Now, with that being said, if I'm your manager and you're 30 years old, I'm going to say, dude, you're kind of old. I don't want to invest money in you. You're going to be retired in 5 years. I can only...
Right. This is not a long-term investment anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where a lot of people look at me too. So he's 35. Like he'd better fight for a world title in the next 2 or 3 years or what, right? And the only guys that are really getting signed to big promotions right now are either Olympians, right? Because they've already proven, or in America they're young Latinos because. The Latino population loves watching boxing. A lot of the top-ranked sponsors, for example, like Ducati, all those people, Mexico. right?
Right.
So why would the Mexican crowd want to watch a 35-year-old Russian fight? They don't. So they're not going to invest money in me. So I either have to take a lot of risks, cut my teeth, and hope that things work out, or not, right? And that's, but usually that means taking hard fights, short notice fights you probably shouldn't be taking in the first place. And in boxing, when you take a loss, you're like, oh, he's 10-1. He's damaged goods. He's pretty good, but there's a big stain on his record. So now people don't want to mess with you. After my first draw, a lot of people stopped talking to me. You know, I said, oh yeah, we'll put you on our show. And then I said, hey, what about, can we still put on? That show's full.
What and so because you have 2 draws, right?
Yes.
What were the conditions of the draw?
The first draw I had, you know, be perfectly honest, I looked at the guy's record. I saw some of his videos and I just underestimated him. You know, I went in there and he was, I talked to him after the fight. He's like, yeah, dude, I had fights dropping out. So I've been in camp for like 3 months. And I'm like, great. You know, but, you know, hats off to him. He came out there, did his thing. He fought well. I fought very poorly. You know, my coach was like, let's go. Time to turn up. Time to do this. And I just couldn't find my gear. And then the second fight.
Well, what lead, I guess in that condition, before we move on to the second one, what led to the draw, though? Like, what were the outcome of the fight? Like,
so a draw basically means judges, that was a 6-round fight. And there's always 3 judges.
right.
And they thought that I won 3 rounds, he won 3 rounds. Another judge said the exact same thing.
Wow. Okay.
So they're saying, well, you guys fought pretty even. In the second fight, I thought I beat the guy. I thought I beat him every round. But he's a Mexican-style fighter, and that means the guy that comes forward, throws a lot of punches, hits and gets hit. And, you know, I thought I boxed him beautifully. You know, my face was clean. I marked him up well, but I guess, I don't know.
Where were you fighting at?
Here. But he was, he came, I think, from Hobbs. So he was also a New Mexico guy.
That's a sad little town, too, man. You
Yeah.
ever been to Hobbs?
Oh, of course.
Fuck that place. My ex-fiance is from Hobbs. I hate that place.
Yeah, man, I remember when I was working in the oil field sometimes, you know, we get to say, hey, stay in town because you're going to go out in a few more, in 5 hours. You know, don't come back to Roswell because you're just going to be burning gas.
Yeah.
So we just park somewhere and go to the casino.
Yep.
You know, yep. Come on. Oh, time to go. All right.
Fuck that place.
Yeah.
It's a sad little town. That's interesting, though. Okay. And then one thing I kind of want to dig into a little bit, too, that you brought up. So you bring up the Mayweather model where it's like the, you know, perfect record pretty much.
Yeah.
And then on the kind of hand in hand with that, you have social media pushing tickets, right? I mean, I feel like social media because basically what you are is an independent contractor. When you're
Yes.
doing this kind of job, whether you're, like I said, you're fighting, you're entertainment, until you make it and you get big management and big contracts and you become a part of the machine.
Exactly.
You're-
Big TV fights.
Yeah, you are a independent contractor.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, maybe you get really good and it's not out for you because when you're 65, you can fight Jake Paul or Jake Paul's son, so you'll be fine.
There you go.
But you're basically independent contracting, all this kind of stuff. And what I've noticed across the board with both fighting, it's like a buddy of mine in town. He fights he's MMA. His name's James Romero.
Okay. Jack dude, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know who he is.
Big old tall dude. He fights out of.
Is it Fit?
Well, originally
United
he
Fit?
was training out. I met him at Legion Iron. That's where I met a lot of buddies out there as Legion Iron, and then I think he fights at NHB. Yeah. But anyway, so he's always pushing tickets like crazy for his shows. I feel bad because every time he has a fight, I've got a stand-up show. Every single time. I feel bad. But, so I've noticed this with local fighters, and then it's the same thing with stand-up, where because of social media, it's less the established brands or the established, let's say, local promoters that are pushing things out. I mean, I'm sure they still do it, like promote their own stuff and all that. I'm sure they still do it, but there's a lot more emphasis on the actual fighters having to push tickets and bring people to the fight. And then, especially what you were just describing, and then like on the stand-up side of things, it's like you need to build, like even like for bigger clubs, like, sure, you have like the Mothership and you have like the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory and the Stand. Like, those will always be institutions that sell out almost every night, blah, blah, blah. But for like the clubs in the middle, you need to have your social media following and be able to show these clubs that you can bring asses into seats, that you can sell tickets, that when your fans come, they're going to have a good time, they're going to buy drinks, and they're going to buy the chicken fingers, and they're going to do whatever it is to make the club money. And it sounds like it's kind of the same thing for what you're just describing, where you want to be able, like, they're spending $1,000 on you, but you only push $500 worth of tickets. Is there a, I guess, because social media still is relatively new, is there a new pressure as a fighter to build the social media following and to be able to push out tickets to bring people to your fight so that you can show that, like, hey, I have this local following. If you put me on your card, people are going to come see me, that kind of deal? Is there a pressure to do that?
Pressure, no. But if you're not doing it, you're already 5 steps behind. And just like you said, right, if I go fight in...
So there's a strong incentive.
Very much so. And, you know, some promoters don't necessarily even care about that, but they care about the end result, right? And they say, oh, wow, he sold. Like for me, I have a lot of clients that I coach that, you know, they can buy the $1,000 tables, right? And, you know, I could sell, you know, 100 tickets and a couple tables will make up that same amount of money. So now, you know, now I'm bringing in a lot more money, and that's good for the promoters. Oh, cool. Leo brought in $6,000.
Right.
Justified. But if I go fight in North Dakota and they slap my face on a poster, people are going to say, who the hell is that?
Right. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you put Dave Chappelle on a poster, oh, hell yeah, I'll go watch him.
Yeah.
Who the hell's Noah Vargas?
Right. No, exactly.
Yeah, you know, locally, we'll be like, oh, holy crap. I know that dude. Let's go watch him.
Right.
Somewhere else, who is that? Right. Same kind of thing. So they'll only bring you in out of state if you're paying for your opponent, or if, you know, they owe you a favor, or if they expect you to lose.
So what is the, I mean, there's the expected outcome of, like, the winner gets paid and all that kind of stuff, but, like, in the behind the scenes kind of thing, you're describing the A side and the B side. What if there's a B side upset?
That happens. And, you know,
What does that do for the B-side guy in that local promotion? Do they even ask you back? Because they're like, well, if we bring you back, you're going to beat our fucking guys, so we don't want you here. Does that happen?
it could. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are some promoters that are legit guys and they want to put on good fights. But at the end of the day, business-wise, that's not always the best move, right? Because you want the guy that said, I got a guy who's 20-0.
Yeah.
Maybe he fought 20 bums, but now there's a golden little crown on his head that I can sell you for a lot more money. Now, what does that do for the B-side guy? Let's say, and this happens all the time, the guy's maybe 15-5, pretty damn good, right? Wins 75% of his fights. Fights a guy that's 20-0 and he beats him. Okay, but now the guy's, you know, 16-5. That's still not marketable enough to say you're going to be a world champion one day. And there's a term in boxing called a journeyman. A journeyman is somebody who makes a living, you know, taking fights, hard fights, and
Like the last minute thing you were describing?
sometimes it's a last minute thing. Sometimes, you know, it's just the guy's good, but he's not good enough to be a world champion. So he's kind of a test for the really good guys we think are going to make it. And that can be a tough position to be in for some people, because it's like, do you want to fight this guy? I think you're better than him, but he is tough and he's beat some good opposition, right? It's like, oh, I don't know, maybe, right? And then that guy's going to take the fight regardless. He needs the money, and it's good money,
Right.
hopefully.
Yeah. So you get your pro debut in 2020. You're down in TJ. You're pro fighting for 5 years. If I'm not mistaken, you run into another injury relatively recently, right?
Yeah.
So, because you've had 9 pro fights, when does the injury happen, the recent one?
The most recent one, that was last year, and it's something that's been bugging me for a long time. I've had some issues with my feet, and it kind of came to a head, you know, and I went to see some doctors, and they kind of told me, well, you know, you could go the surgery route, you can go the physical therapy route, and the surgery was a very long recovery time. I'm not going to go into details, but in my mind, I'm like, dude, if I do this surgery, that's pretty much my career right there.
I was going to say, because at what point, like, Because obviously you want to avoid surgery going under the knife at all costs.
Yeah.
But like, especially with your feet, I mean, it sounds like high risk with next to no reward.
It could make me feel better or not really.
Yeah.
And now, I'm on crutches for months and I still can't train for another 3, 4, 5 months. And it's going to be, close to a year before I get back into the shape I was in. And so, yeah, it was very iffy. And it's very hard as a fighter, as an athlete, I'll even put it that way, to say, hey, man, I'm going to take some time off and let this thing heal.
Yeah.
Right. So I did the physical therapy route, and it was very hard for me mentally because I'm like, yeah, I want to be in the gym. I want to be fighting. I want to be, And people are like, are you still fighting? It's like, yes, but I'm dealing with a thing right now, and
Yeah.
so it's,
it takes a toll after a while.
oh, absolutely.
You're probably getting stir crazy 3 days in, but yeah. Jesus.
And for everyone, it's like, oh, dude, you're a pro athlete. You must be super healthy. I'm like, dude, no. Pro sports is not healthy. Like it's good if you work out a few times a week for an hour at a time. If you work out for 4 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Just breaking down the body.
Yeah. Like, yeah, a race car is pretty freaking cool. How often do they go through tires every race?
Yeah.
How often do they blow engines? A lot more often than the normal street car.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, yeah, it's super high performance, but the lifespan is.
What, just generally, I do want to get into what's been going on over the last year, but like, generally speaking now, what do you do to maintain or to promote recovery in your body?
One of the big things I had to change, or rather notice for myself, is have those conversations like, hey, dude, don't run today. Yeah, but I wanted to, to me, every night before I go to bed, I say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to, let's say I've got 2 privates, I got a coach, and then I'm going to hit a light boxing workout, then I'm going to run a 10K, and then I'm going to run a hard boxing training session in the evening. Whatever, right?
Whatever.
But if I'm like, dude, I don't know, my ankle really, really hurts. No, I told myself I was going to run this 10K, I still got to run it. Even though I know it's detrimental. And that's always been my mindset. If I tell myself I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And it's very hard for me to say the smart thing is to take some time off, maybe take the day off. And, part of it, maybe it's because I'm getting older. Part of it, maybe just because my body's breaking down. The two are probably interconnected in some way. But, just having those conversations with, you know what, I'm not running today. Hey, dude, I don't need to spend 30 rounds on the back today. I'm just going to do a light workout instead. I'm not going to hit the back today at all. I'm just going to do, head movement, footwork drills, and other stuff. And so I've had to kind of, and so this isn't so much on recovery. I always do recovery stuff. I got massage guns, foam rollers, lacrosse balls, stem packs, a hot tub. It's a little, those little pads you stick and they send little electrical shocks through you.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
Oh, like stimming. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You feel like that actually helps you out with the muscle recovery?
I think so.
No shit.
I've always wondered if some things are just more, placebo effect, but I do feel better after them.
Well, if it works, it works. I'm just curious because there's so many different things you can do between everything you just laid out and like sauna, cold plunges, red light therapy. There's a million different ways you can go about it these days.
Right.
So that's interesting.
And, after a while, you kind of learn what your body likes, what it doesn't like, what helps and what doesn't. And, if I have an hour off to go and eat and I stick those little pads on myself and shock myself, it feels better. Why not? Right?
Yeah, it's just a funny way to put it. So you recover out of the injury. How soon? So what was the window of time from, okay, we got to put a pause on the gym to going back to training again?
Right. So after my second draw, so I had 2 draws in a row. I was 5-0, boom, draw. I was underprepared for the guy. Second one, I thought I crushed him every round. Draw again. That blew my mind. Now I'm like, hey, I want to get back and fight again. People are like, or the promoters are kind of like, maybe not. So like people are giving me the cold shoulder. So I've been trying to find fights, and sometimes, like I said, they said, "Yeah, we'll put you on, but you got to pay for your own opponent." Crap. Okay.
That's crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
That's I meant to say that earlier, but that's because you brought that up. That's the idea you have to pay. I mean, just on paper, okay?
Yeah.
The idea you have to pay for some dude to punch you in the face is crazy.
Right.
But a pay to play system for combat sports is nuts. Like I would understand like paying your way out there or like getting a hotel room for yourself if you're at the lower level. Like I can kind of understand that. Okay, fine. Like that's like paying for your wife's divorce lawyer. Like that's insane.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. And, I don't think it happens as much in MMA. It's really a boxing thing, and I think part of it is just the culture. At some point, some dude said, "Hey, I'll pay you a lot of money to fight my guy," and then you tell the promoter, "Hey man, I'll front the money, just put him on the card," and that became a thing. So and that's the other thing. Unless you have a lot of money behind you, it's very hard to break through.
Yeah.
Once you get to the point where you're, I don't want to say globally known, but at a certain level and you're making, 20, 30, 40,000 a fight, you're probably always going to be making at least 10,000 a fight.
Right.
But if you're just kind of like middling and coming up,
Jesus.
so it's, yeah, like I said, unless you're, got Olympic medals coming out of the amateurs, you have to build your record and then, take a few risks and hopefully it plays out. And if it doesn't, then that's kind of your career right there. You're going to be the guy they bring in for tough fights, but
That's insane. And I do want to get to the point that I was getting at, but also just kind of on this same track. How much boxing opportunity is there in not even just Albuquerque, but New Mexico?
New Mexico, unfortunately, isn't great. The promoters we have out here, Legacy Boxing, they throw about 3 shows a year. That's who I usually fight with, and I like them. Teresa Tapia throws shows once or twice a year.
I'd imagine of Tapia fame.
Yeah,
Right,
and
yeah.
I think this card they're doing some of those, I guess, what do you call them, influencer boxing matches. Yeah, I
What
was
New Mexico influencers are fucking boxing?
couldn't tell you, dude. I'll send you a little.
I'm gonna look it up right now. I don't like pulling out my phone during a podcast, but I
Do it.
have to look at this shit.
Do it, yeah. And then there was also School of Hard Knocks. That's Isidro Castillo. He usually does fights in the South, Hobbs, Roswell, that area. But he's not so much active anymore. And then there's Pat Holmes, who I think he's throwing a card soon, and he has.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, but right now, I mean, this year, I think we've had maybe, I would say 2025, we had maybe 2 or 3 pro boxing cards the whole year.
All right, let's take a look here. So we've got the Tapia takeover that's coming up. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think this Friday.
Okay, so, okay, this is the schedule, but I want to see who's actually on the card. Why is it not telling? Okay, here. Okay, I don't know who any of these guys are. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see their faces, but it's not telling me the names. Give me names.
Let me see if I can pull it up. We're both on our phones.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here we go. I got it. All right. So, I mean, the only one that's sticking out to me is Johnny Tapia Jr. and Nico Tapia.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
So the only real fighters on that card, Cody East, he's a friend of mine. He's a heavyweight.
yep, I see him.
His opponent actually just recently dropped out. They're trying to find him another one. So this is the situation we're talking about. Can you fight this Friday in 2 days?
Bro, Jesus.
The other heavyweight, Chase Sherman, also an ex-UFC guy, his opponent dropped out. They're trying to find him. Now, there was some other face, Big Sam or something like that.
So there's a Felipe Chavez and a John McDessie?
So John McDessie is a ex-UFC guy.
Okay.
Let me see here.
Interesting. Well, I just think it's so funny that you would think that because of the culture of Albuquerque, it's just focus on Albuquerque.
Yeah.
You would think that the culture of Albuquerque, and we are growing, like there are, I mean, I know they're always booked and you have to book these venues a year in advance. I get that. But we do have some venues here that would support boxing. Now Bernalillo and Rio Rancho is starting to grow. Sure, it's 45, 50 minutes away, but Santa Fe's right there. I'm sure there's got to be at least one place down in Los Lunas or Belen. Like, there's places to hold them. Albuquerque has a culture of combat sports. MMA is bigger than it's ever been. Boxing is never going away. you would think there would be a lucrative push to get as much boxing as possible in Albuquerque or surrounding areas.
Absolutely, but sometimes that's not the reality. And I looked into it to host a small, small local professional fight. You need at least $50,000.
Fuck me.
Because even if you're doing 5 fights, on the low end, let's say you're paying each guy $1,000, right? 5 fights, 10. That's $10,000. So how much would a venue would want? $5,000 to $10,000, right? You need to advertise. You need to pay the state athletic commission for them to bring in their, whoever, whatever.
And I've heard that's a nightmare having to deal with the commissions.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you gotta, if you don't own a ring, you gotta rent a ring. That's at least $1,000 right there, right? You have to pay for paramedics to be on standby. You have to pay for security, and there's this, that, and the other. And you're hopefully gonna make your money back on ticket sales and alcohol sales.
Right.
If you want to stream the fight, okay, that's still for local people.
Right.
Somebody in New York's not gonna randomly hop on and pay for this. Unless they know the person, but
right, it's rare to non-existent. Yeah. Holy shit. I mean, it makes sense. So we have only a couple of local promotions that are happening. Let's just round it out and say each promotion does 2 fights a year.
So this last year we only had 2 or 3 total.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So you have very nil opportunity,
right,
to really break out in New Mexico. And like I said, I was listening to some of your interviews last night. What are you having to find yourself doing between getting in contact with promoters, getting sponsors? I mean, how do you attack this kind of thing to be able to get yourself onto a card?
So,
because you just had a fight in December, right?
Correct. That was here local. I think that was the last show of the year here.
At Kiva, right?
At Kiva.
And
Legacy,
you won.
Legacy, of course.
And he won. Fuckers. He won. So what do you... And that's kind of where I want to round out the conversation a little bit later with the Fire Academy. But, yeah, how do you go about getting to your next fight?
Right. So if you don't have a manager, and I had a manager for a while now, I'm self-managed. I got put in touch with a guy, not this fight, but the fight before, who has a promotion in California and in Tijuana. And he said, if you want to fight, yeah. I'll find you an opponent. I'll send you a dollar amount. You bring that money. You get your fight. It's on BoxRec. Okay, cool. So now, he said, I want for the opponent, for the sanction fees, whatever. I'll just make up a realistic number, $2,500. Okay, cool. And then I got to think, okay, I got to bring a coach with me. I got to get over there. I got to rent a hotel, right? That's another $1,000.
I was gonna say,
conservatively speaking, right? Now the dumb way of doing it, and probably dumb and best. You just go on Instagram, say, "Hey guys, I got a fight coming up. If anybody wants to sponsor me, please help." Blah 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 blah. But a lot of people, might just overlook that. So, as much as I personally hate to do it, because I'm just not that type of guy that's good at these conversations, but I says, "Hey, Noah, what would you think about having?" Improvised Intelligence sponsor me. I have a fight coming up. I need to, I got to be very transparent with you. I can't be like, oh yeah, dude, I just need money. Because you're going to be like, okay. I'm like, hey man, I got to pay for tickets, hotels, what have you.
Right.
Anything you could do, I'll put you on my shirt. I'll put you on my shorts. I'll give you a shout out on social media. At the end of the day, the position I'm in, I can't do that much for you. I can do as much as I can, right? But once again, I'm no Mike Tyson. If Mike Tyson says, hey, shout out to Improvised Intelligence, all of a sudden,
right.
Right. If I'm like, shout out to Improvised Intelligence, a couple thousand people are going to see that and they're going to say, what? Right. So, because you're my friend, you might say, okay, man, I can help you with $200.
Right.
And then I go, some bigger company might say, hey, here's 500, here's 1,000, but that's far and few between. Sometimes they'll say, hey, man, well, I own like for example, Peak Sports Nutrition, they've always helped me, but sometimes
that's a great store too.
Absolutely.
Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, Tony, I love Tony. Sometimes I can give you a couple $100 or you can take some supplements. I really need supplements this time around, so I'll take that. Sometimes people say, hey man, I've got a women's underwear company. I'll give you some women's underwear. Well, that's not really on brand for me, right? And I'm like, right. So sometimes people do it out of the good in their hearts.
Right.
A friend of mine owns a construction company. He helped me out. I don't think I I did as best I could for him, to help him out, put him on my shorts and my shirt. But a lot of
it's the realistic aspect of what's going on here.
right.
And now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then over the years you do meet and become friends with promoters, and I got the phone call, hey, we're having a fight in December. Do you want to fight on it? Yeah. Okay. And you kind of go from there.
Jesus, I mean, truly, I respect the shit out of you for doing all this stuff, dude. Like it's absolutely incredible. So just had the fight in December. You won, but how did that fight go?
It went good. It won all 6 rounds.
Okay.
I had the guy rocked a few times, but he had a hard head. I fought him before. He fought some of my friends before. He's had tough competition in his career, and he's one of those guys that will fight anybody. So his record's a little lopsided, but if you look at some of those guys, he fought an Olympic gold medalist. He fought another guy who I think he was a contender. So he fought real guys.
Yeah. And one thing I'm curious about too is, so because I heard you in a couple of interviews talking about how you put an emphasis in your training camps, and just as you as a boxer, you put an emphasis on being a technical fighter, being a well-rounded. You understand how to. Now you're not just going for the slobber knocker, knockout, whatever. What I'm curious about too is, so yes, the promoters are looking at your A's, they're looking at your record, they're all your marketability that you brought up, you're looking at all that. As far as the performance side of the fight goes, like the actual looking at you in the ring goes, are the promoters looking at like, oh, well, we know that, okay, so we know he's a good fighter, we know he's a good record, he's what he can make with the weight and all that stuff, he can move tickets, blah, 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 all that shit, right? When the promoters are looking at you, and these fight promoters are looking at you, are they taking into consider like, oh, we know if we put this guy into a fight, he's gonna go for a knockout. That's gonna make this fight great. People are gonna talk about it afterwards. Like, are they thinking about that kind of stuff? Because I mean, the average layman, like, I enjoy watching boxing. I'm by no means an expert on the sport, but I know that I enjoy watching it. Back in my mind, I'm like, knock that motherfucker out.
Yeah,
I want to see a fucking knockout.
Yeah,
So are the promoters thinking about that? Where it's like, oh, this guy is known for going for knockout punches. He's known for putting his opponent down early. Like, do they take those things in consideration?
absolutely, because that's marketability on a non-local level, right? And he's like, hey man, we're gonna put this guy on who's 10-0 with 10 knockouts. People are like, okay, I don't know him, but I'll come watch him. Right. If you say, hey man, this guy's an Olympian, okay, I'll come watch him. Me, I've never been, like you said, I've always been more technical. I've never been a guy that is a huge puncher. I'm tall and skinny for what it is. And I can hit okay, but I don't consider myself some one-punch knockout demon. But
well, have you ever had like promoters try to like, hey, you should probably try to knock people out?
Oh, absolutely.
Or you have, like, coaches, but you should try to knock out more.
Yeah, and I'd love to finish every fight by knockout, but that's sometimes not the reality. And
yeah,
yeah. Short answer, yeah. I've had people, hey man, try to finish this guy. And I was like, yeah.
Should I knock him out?
I didn't think of that.
I didn't fucking. It might be the TTE. I don't know.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and absolutely, that's the thing, right? That's great marketability.
Yeah.
There's guys. I mean, like Floyd's not a big knockout guy, but he's super technical. A lot of people want to see him lose. That's why they pay to see his fights.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a expert on the sport at all, but just watching a couple of his fights, he's probably one of, if not the best at the not getting touched aspect of boxing.
Absolutely.
You are not going to touch that guy.
Absolutely.
His head and foot movement is just absolutely insane. He's like something out of fucking Naruto. What's his name? Fucking Rock Lee, where he just keeps moving around a bunch. You're not going to touch the guy. But you're right. Even like as a casual viewer, I was like, can somebody please just fucking put this guy on the ground?
And that's why so many people were happy with the last Jake Paul fight.
Oh yeah, with him getting knocked.
Getting his jaw broken in 2 places,
That picture of him on the ground where he's looking up like, that's a great moment.
Absolutely.
And I just, with all that kind of stuff, I don't know if I, like, quote unquote agree with the optics of Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. You know,
No,
because it's like
clown show.
he's a fucking old man. What do you do now? Granted, I love that in the one opportunity that Mike Tyson had to show the world his ass. I'm glad that he did. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
That was funny.
But it was, and again, I'm not an expert on the sport, so I can't really weigh in yes or no. But like, I did think it was interesting. I understand that a lot of it is for clicks, but I do think it was interesting how a lot of people that know a lot or purport to know a lot more about the sport than I do, I saw a couple of videos on YouTube where they were talking about how, well, this is how Tyson would fight towards the end of his professional career. This is his patterns, his movements. It's traditionally how he moves. And then we juxtapose that with the fight with Jake Paul, and you see a lot of that there. And it's like, oh, he pulled a punch here. He could have moved in here. He could have da-da-da-da-da here. It's like, oh, well, maybe. Because that would have been great to see one more knockout from Tyson.
Oh, yes.
Especially on fucking... I mean, clearly Jake Paul loves boxing. I mean, he fucking, bought a part of like, Costa Rica or whatever to go boxing. Like, all right, if you're going to have the money to do it, go do it, whatever. But I do think that that's interesting that, like, you almost want to call them conspiracies flying around about, man, did he hold back? Did he whatever? Do you watch the celebrity fights these days at all?
I did watch that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson because it's Mike Tyson.
Right.
And because same thing. I was hoping Mike Tyson would just flatline
For him, yeah.
And I do think he pulled some punches. There were a few hooks he threw. I'm like, dude, that was like a foot away from his face. There's no way like you threw that, with all your experience and thought that would even remotely land. So
Really?
And they do make contracts where they say, okay, if the fight ends in a knockout, instead of $2,000, you're going to make $5,000. It doesn't say you have to win by a knockout.
Right.
As long as it ends in a knockout.
Right.
Why not?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, hey, Mike, we'll give you $1 million to fight Jake Paul. If by some miracle he happens to beat you, we'll give you $3 million. Why not? Right. Mike is, 20 plus years removed from a competitive fight.
Yeah.
He's not vying for a world title shot.
Why does he want to hurt himself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for what it's worth, do I think Mike could have beat Jake? Yeah, but Jake, is 35 years younger than he is.
The age difference is insane.
Yeah, so.
And that's like a very good point, because a part of the reason I was watching too was like, I was just curious about, like, let's just go into the assumption, under good faith, that Tyson is going to do his thing. That was a real question of like, okay, you have decades of skill, one of the best to ever do it, one of the hardest hitting humans on the planet in human history, one of the hardest hitting people. But what does age do to a guy? And not just like a couple of years. Yeah, what, 3 decades more?
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking you is the difference.
Yeah.
Between these guys.
And
absolutely fucking insane.
And for what it's worth, even if he tried, I wouldn't give Mike a great chance at beating a 28-year-old Jake Paul.
Right. Yeah.
Just for that, yeah, of course Mike is a better boxer, 100%. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
but that age difference.
The age is insane.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. So in a couple of weeks, or maybe even a week and a half, start the Fire Academy.
Yes.
Good for you. Congratulations on getting through, because I've had a couple buddies go through it. I've had a couple buddies try and fail to get through all the screenings and the interviews and but all the things you have to do.
It's a crazy process.
Long process. So what made you decide on the Fire Academy or being a firefighter in the first place?
So after that fight in Mexico, not this last one, but the previous one, my 8th fight, we went on vacation, me, my fiance, and a couple of her friends, and one of her friends' husbands was a firefighter. He was there, and him and I clicked, and I was telling him, he's like, oh, cool, what are you going to do with boxing? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, after that fight, the one I told you I went to Mexico, had to pay out of pocket for, I had, thousands and thousands of dollars of credit card debt when I came back, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh, sure.
So I kind of told him, like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I might go do something else. Like, did you ever think about firefighting? And I was like, kind of, but not seriously. Because like I told you when I was young, I wanted to do military stuff and, do cool stuff, man. He's like, think about it, this, that, and the other. And he kind of talked. And I was like, you know what? why not? He's like, hey, the application's going on right now. Try to go through the process. You can dip out at any time if you decide you want to keep fighting or whatever. So I did the interview. There was a physical test. You have to do a bunch of exercises. You have to within a certain time. Boom, passed. Written exam, a little over 100 questions.
What was the physical exam?
So it's called the CPAT, Candidate Physical Aptitude Test. And the first thing you have to do before you even start the test, they give you a 50-pound vest. They put a 25-pound weight on top of the vest, and they make you get on the Stairmaster for 3.5 minutes. If you fall off, you instantly fail, go home. That's the first thing. Then they take that 25-pound weight off, so you still have a 50-pound vest, and they just make you do a bunch of exercises. Like they make you do farmer carries with tools. They make you take a hose, run it out, and then drag it in and lift stuff. Big old dummy drag, and dummy was heavy, man. And then they make you do a
like
bunch.
100 pound, 120 pound, maybe?
160, 170.
Damn. You know, I will say this. I appreciate that just from the jump. They're like, this is the bare minimum if shit hits the fan, what you're going to be doing on your job. If you can't do it now, we don't want to waste the time getting you there.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then there was a written test. If you fail at any point, you're kicked out of the process. You pass a written test.
What are they testing you on for a written exam?
It's kind of like a high school equivalency test. A lot of mathematics, reading, writing comprehension. Then they play some audio clips for you, and you have to memorize it. And then they ask you questions about it.
Interesting.
And then there's some like logic stuff. If your fire station's here and you're here and you're going north, west, south, east, whatever, blah blah blah. Then there's oral boards where I guess some people flunked out too. They ask you questions, see how you would respond, and
is it like a personality, like trying to
a little
feel
bit
out you as a person?
Some of it was kind of like, tell us about a time you had a difficult work situation or whatever, and then other times they're like, hey, okay, imagine you're going on a fire call and the house is on fire and you see a dog inside. What do you do? Or something like that. They just want to see how you answer those questions, and then after that. You get a doctor's exam, check your eyes, your ears, your everything, a blood test. And then you do a psych eval, 600 questions. We were there for 4 hours. True, false, yes, no, yes, no. And then you have a sit down with a psychiatrist. Man, it was a lot.
So you're a professional fighter. How you doing?
True.
That's crazy. So how long was the whole process until they're like, all right, you're going to the fire academy?
So funny enough, I jumped in at the very end. We got back, whatever weekend. That Monday night I looked into it. And that physical test, CPAT, they do a number of them throughout the hiring process for like 2 months. Maybe like 6 or 8 of them or whatever. That Monday night I looked, the last one was Saturday. That Saturday I was like, oh crap. So I got to register, sign up. I'm Googling to see what it is. I didn't train for it at all. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. I go online, Google it. I'm like, okay. Grabbed a backpack, stuffed it full of weights, went to choose, jumped on the Stairmaster, and I'm like, all right, I think I'll be okay.
What's this fucking psycho doing over here?
I know, dude.
Stairmaster.
I know. One of the girls was looking at me because I was fitting these plates in the backpack. I'm like, I'm not stealing. So, that was that. But the process, late September, I think. And that was, like I said, I just started like, boom, September. On October, you had your written exam. Late October, you had your boards. November, December, all the clerical stuff, all the psych evals. And then January, we start. So, but I heard back in the day, the whole interview process was like 6 to 12 months. Now they do it in, 3 to 6.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. So you start here in a couple of weeks. Fire Academy runs for like
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah.
You have to shave your head.
Oh yeah.
No more beard.
No more beard. That's what I don't care about my hair, but I always like to keep it fine. I look like a kid if I shave, man.
That's how I am too.
I know. So.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm very excited for you. I'm sure it's going to go well. What I think is funny about the Fire Academy is, and it's the same thing with the APD Police Academy here too, but like, something like basic training in the military, you're shipped off somewhere, you're going somewhere, you're going to live there, you eat there, you sleep there, you blah, blah, blah. Fire Academy, you have to wake up every morning and make the choice. It's like you're going to a version of a training camp pretty much.
Yeah, and
So you have the mental, like, you're prepared for it, but when's the last time you were in a camp, like, proper before this?
the closest thing I probably did was there was a boot camp for field engineers when I worked in the oil field. I was there for 3 months in Oklahoma. I kind of brushed up on it. It was the same thing. You're on the bus by 5 a.m. and you're there all day. It wasn't as physically demanding, but it was the same thing, like tests, 2 or 3 times a week, and you don't pass, you get 1 or 2 failures and they fire you.
Right.
So it's kind of like that. But it's cool. I'm all about it, man.
I would say I'd imagine you're pretty excited to get started.
Yeah, I like challenges. I like seeing if something can break me. So I think I'll enjoy it.
Nice.
Hindsight's 2020. I would be like, this is the worst thing, but I'm all about it, man. In my mind, I'm just getting paid to work out and get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
So
well, and the couple of friends that I do have that are both in Albuquerque Fire and then up in Bernalillo. I mean, once they get through it and they start getting into their probation year and all that stuff, I've never heard one bad thing about the fire academy or about the firefighter just career in New Mexico. So I'm very excited for you.
No, me too, man. I've gone on a few ride-alongs. It seems like the kind of job I'd love to do, man. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Well, listen, man, this has been a lot of fun. You're an interesting guy. You are a very interesting guy, very interesting life. And again, I said a little earlier, but I respect the shit out of you for choosing the life that you're leading. I mean, again, just like, yeah, man, the fighting world is fascinating to me, truly. And I think you provided a lot of really great insight into your life. And this has been a fascinating conversation. So thank you for coming and doing this.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you on social media? How can people support you in your fighting career? How can people support you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place is my Instagram. That's where I'm most active. It's at Baby Drago Boxer, BabyDrago Boxer, BOXER. I don't know how much boxing content I'll be posting when I'm in the academy. And I definitely won't be fighting for the next 6 months. And I'm super excited to be doing what I'm doing. But that's what I'm going to focus on. And then once that's over, we'll see where I'm at. And we'll go from there.
Cool shit. Well, best of luck to you in the academy, man. I'm sure you're going to do great. I'd love to do this again sometime down the road. This has been, just fucking fantastic conversation.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it, man. I had a blast.
I'm glad to hear that, dude. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.